kind of like the Joker. I'm sort of fucked up and pretty dangerous.
Just thinking, like, you're like one of the most pleasant, manageable people I know, really, after all these years, which makes me think, like, oh, you really are like the character from the movie.
That's me. That's me. I'm
the Joker. The Joker. Would you like a cup of tea? No, thank you, Joker. Very well. I will offer again shortly. I'm crazy.
He ho ho hoo hoo hoo. He ha ha ha. I'm dancing on a staircase because I'm pretty fucked up and kind of dangerous.
It's time for another episode of Moonbase.
Woo woo woo. Woo woo. Woo woo. Woo woo. Woo woo.
Anyway, hello! There's the point to all this. Maybe you just came in and my weirdly enthusiastic hello makes no sense. Maybe our last 5 minutes are wondering what the fuck are they talking about. Guys, ladies, everyone else, it is time for Transformers Cyberverse. It has been about half a year, just over half a year, in fact, since Cyberverse resurrected from the grave, like a show that wouldn't die, and gave us a two movie, 80-minute long season 4, which is about 8 episodes of the regular show, so it would be more a miniseries. I wanted to talk about it for a good long while, and I couldn't think of anyone really who would be better to talk to about Cyberverse than the man, the myth, the legend. You've probably been listening for 5 minutes, so you know who he is. The Joker. Hello, Joker.
Ha ha! I bet you're wondering how I got these lips. I'm pretty fucked up and kind of dangerous. Ha ha hee hee hoo. Hey, listen. Depending whether or not you listen to the last 5 minutes, I think Peter Cullen's probably fine. Both as a person, but also financially. You know, I don't know though, so I defer to people who do know. What I know is I just looked. It's been 8 months since Cyberverse ended. I can't believe that. Because I was wondering, like, man, has it been like a while since like Cyberverse ended and now we finally know what Earthspark is? But no, it's only been 8 months. That's actually not that long in the bigger picture of things.
The turnover, when I think about it, for Earthspark, is actually a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how that one turns out, just because it looks like they put a pile of money into it that like Cyberverse did not get access to. By the way, hi, I'm Chris Vangelus, internet person. I'm here because Mikey and I like to talk about the Cyberverse show because we both really liked it, and even though I think a lot of people did like it, we're both, I think, still overly protective of it and really want to make sure you all appreciate our little precious baby who had, no union actors, no budget, very little to work with, and then became its own wonderful thing under all of those circumstances. I think that's always an important thing to state up front, is like, this was a show that is good in spite of everything that its corporation handed to it. Randolph Hurd and those writers did so much work on the show. Absolutely. And the artists. I don't want to understate any of it. Like, they did such good work, and like, on a slightly parallel track, some of those writers and some of the actors involved were also in that Netflix show and doing almost the exact same thing, yet the end result, I think, was palpably worse. Cyberverse
almost like there was a force over them, stopping them from expressing their great talents.
Yeah, it's like, hey, what's the difference? And then there's a giant N, and there's like some dude who's a showrunner, and you're like, maybe those are the difference. Like, I don't know. But also I'm going to say this up front, also so people listening understand, we like Cyberverse, so you're unlikely to hear us. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Mikey really hated it, but like, I doubt you're going to hear us like severely dunking on this season 4. So if you are here for some, like, oh, right, finally they're going to lay into Jake Foshi, like, that little jerk finally is going to get what he deserves. Like, we probably aren't going to do that. So, like, I have my critiques that I still have stored up in my brain. So this is not going to be like the total love bomb. However, is under, in my opinion, probably a love umbrella, is what I'd say.
Just a little rain outside, but you're quite comfortable underneath.
Yeah. You're not going to hear us walking into this, pulling up our suspenders, snapping them on our nipples, and going like, "Now we're really going to show who's boss." Yeah, I mean, I say all this. Granted, maybe the way the Dinobots appeared in this and Volcanicus appeared, maybe Mikey despises it, and this is like Mikey's chance to finally spit on the floor. I don't know. But yeah, I wanted to lay out that stuff up front because like Cyberverse is still just an odd topic because so many people just in fact haven't watched it. Like it's a really easy show to not have seen.
Yeah,
like I was going to say, season 4 was YouTube exclusive or something, right? Like,
hang on, I had the release. So it was YouTube, and then Canada had a TV release, and then Netflix. So you actually had a TV release the day after on YTunes or YTelly, whatever it is. You didn't know that, did you?
YTelly is my favorite foreign way I've ever heard someone refer to YTV. That makes me very happy. Because you're not actually wrong. You said the TV part differently. I don't have cable, so I didn't see it on YTV. I should say
no. It's since aired on UK TV on Pop TV. Just like so, Pop TV got season 3. I think weeks before. Pop Telly. Pop Telly got season 3 weeks before the US and Canada, but I think they only recently got season 4 of Cyberverse because I was just channel surfing a while ago and I saw it on there. But so
that explains. Not to cut in, but that actually explains to me the situation I got a Twitter reply from someone in the UK today about Cyberverse because I posted a clip that apparently the first half of season 4 is available to UK viewers on YouTube, but not the second half. If it, I guess, recently has aired, maybe that explains that weird scenario.
Yeah, we were actually talking before. Like right now, whether you can watch the full episodes on YouTube, on the Transformers official YouTube, is entirely down to where in the world you are.
Yeah, which is messed up.
Which is very messed up. That is machinima level bullshit.
That's region locking stuff that, hey, guess what? Paramount Plus actually gets up to as well. So I'm looking forward to the journey of Earthspark and whether or not I can watch it legally while it airs. We'll see.
I was thinking that. But anyway, so season 4, like we said, I remember when season 3 wrapped up, we were all very convinced this show was dead. And then there were rumors of movies, and it seemed unlikely. And then they started making toys again, and that seemed crazy. And eventually, we got Transformers Cyberverse season 4. So, 2 episodes. First one is called The Immobilizers. The second one is The Perfect Decepticon. Mobilizers, when a gang of mercenaries time locks all of Cybertron, Grimlock and a new group of friends must combine their efforts to save the planet. It introduces the Dinobots, it introduces the mercenaries, it introduces not the best Trypticon, but the second best Trypticon, because I'll always put Optimus Prime Trypticon first. I love him. He is best dinosaur dad. But yeah, it introduces a lot of characters. It also really highlighted that this was made on a shoestring budget because every new model in this show is in this episode. Everything else is a use of repaints or minor retools. So there's that. And now this one has 6 new models, so that is cool, but still. The next one, Perfect
Trypticon actually blew my mind. Trypticon blew my mind. Like
Absolutely.
Knowing what these movies were when Trypticon actually appeared, I was like, "Yo, you made a whole ass Trypticon! Like that's pretty cool."
Like for context, the ship you see the mercenaries are using is a Quintessence ship that they've just repainted, and then out to the back of it comes Trypticon, and I was just like, "What the?" I think Grimlock had the best reaction to that, which was just like, "This is your boss." Trypticon says something which I'm going to get into, and then Grimlock just looks at him and goes, "What?" Like, what is happening? Perfect Decepticon. It follows up on the end of season 3. The Decepticons from another dimension return to Cybertron, forcing Autobots and Decepticons into a conflict that threatens to reignite the Great War all over again. Introducing the Tarn, bringing back the Perfect Decepticons. Astro Train's there, mentioning Megatron X. But it's a big culmination of season 4, and we're gonna talk about it, I'm sure. But I think an incredibly strong ending, an unreasonably strong ending.
And I was already okay with the end of season 3. It was a little bit sudden, but it left a state where I was like, this is okay. Like, this is a state that this little universe can end in. And I think that the final minutes of Cyberverse now are just really good Transformers. It's just like a lovely little note to end on. Obviously, the universe still exists. We're probably never going to come back to it, but it's there still, and it ends on this like very slight IDW1 note in a way that's really just pleasant. It's a pleasant, slightly maudlin ending.
Yeah, while feeling distinct as well. Like, that's something like IDW's DNA kind of runs through these two episodes. In fact, these two movies, like more so than it did for the show. And by the end of season 3, there was a lot of IDW like DNA in there, but IDW1's DNA is really like ingrained in a lot of this, in just the basic setting, the choice of villains, everything else. Actually, I'd say the villains actually tie more to IDW2 in a way, but that ending is still like very distinct, and there's no attempt to like emulate it. It's just like, this is a really cool thing to put in, so we're going to use this as a basis. But anyway, so this is actually when I don't have a lot of structure in mind for this one. Like, I think we're just going to come up with topics, bouncing back and forth, see what sticks with us. So it can be any, like, don't need to stick to like episode by episode either. Like, let's just get a bit of discussion going. So, Chris, first thing you wanna talk about Cyberverse season 4?
Yeah, I'll start off with kind of the first chunk of it, because that's where my brain is right now. But I really like that it continues a theme that I think existed throughout season 3 of it's a theme I kind of liked, where we had a cartoon version of what is post-war Cybertron like, except that it's more like, what is post-war Cybertron like, where we're trying real hard to have peace, and now that the Autobot Decepticon war is over, what if just a bunch of other stuff starts showing up and messing up our attempts to have our treaty? And I liked how this opened, where it's like, finally, a parade that's real. We're going to have the treaty. Oh no, now what happened? And then... And there's going to be, I think Cyberverse is going to be a show that has a lot of basically like Transformers trivia questions added to it as the decades go on. Because guess what? We get to see the mercenary symbol show up in this. And I bet a lot of people in years to come may only think that ever showed up in the Netflix show. But no, I will touch on the mercs, since, they're one of the first main things we see. Boy, like the aplomb through which they are repaints, I think was actually really impressive. Because they, like, none of them have toys, as far as I know. But I don't
even think Sound Blaster's got one.
No, I feel like I might have double checked this beforehand, because I actually was wondering about Afterburner, but I'm going to triple check now. Actually, nope, does not have a toy. So the mercenaries they're not just redecos, they are very toyetically smart redecos. And in fact, Double Crosser, I think, is incredibly clever in a way that's probably going to go uncredited for a long time. Of like, you actually figured out the one repaint you could do of Rack and Ruin, which is like, hey, guess what? There is another two-headed Decepticon who kind of looks like that, who turns into a ramp. He just came out a couple years ago. That's smart stuff, I think. But I liked how they showed up, and that there was no real, like, why do they all look like everyone else? Because this show has kind of shown the whole shared chassis thing. And their voice performances, I felt, were decent. Like, hey, we got Bug Bite being a little freak, right? Like, that's kind of cool. And Sound Blaster having the, like, this, I love the tonal dissonance of Sound Blaster's whole backstory of, like, he was driven out by his twin brother. It's like, ooh, what happened? He lost at a beatboxing competition and got mad. And it's like, oh, well, that's real funny. He went on to annihilate entire planets. It's like, boy, Sound Blaster probably sucks. And I like how this also was a sort of, this is probably intentional, but like when you first watch this, you maybe think about it, you don't realize it. This is the hint that like season 4 is kind of in a way about Soundwave, and how Soundwave is dealing, like Soundwave is trying to deal with the fact that he's sort of the de facto leader of the Decepticons now. everyone wants peace. Soundwave wants peace. But Soundwave also has a lot of awareness that he has absolutely no place in a peacetime world anymore. He's completely damaged by being the evil Decepticon Soundwave, and he has a self-awareness of it. And I think that this was almost like a little prelude to that of like, you know, hey, why have the immobilizer been activated? Why have the mercs come to mess up the treaty? It's actually your fault, Soundwave, kind of, because this is your twin brother who, like, admittedly, through 90% his own fault, has come back to wreak revenge. But yeah, like I liked the mercs in this. Like, you know, they're kind of silly. One of my crits is kind of like they have a strong intro and then they sort of stop mattering for the most part by the end in a way that was. I was hoping that there would be like maybe one last little thrush from them by the end, but a lot of that just ends up going to Sound Blaster and Trypticon. And in the space of a 44-minute episode, it's like that's also fine. Like, it's not like, you know, the worst thing in the world, but their introduction is a lot stronger than like what they end up being by the end. They're kind of just they're there for a moment, and then Sound Blaster and Trypticon are there for the follow through, and you know that is what it is. But also they blew up a planet full of dinosaurs, and that's kind of like I liked that as a backstory thing, but also I was like, damn, like these are sort of I guess you can't really rehabilitate these mercs because they've annihilated entire planets. That is arguably worse than anything Megatron ever did in this universe.
Yeah, Megatron, as far as we know, was basically on his planet and then came to Earth.
Yeah, like, he didn't wipe out civilizations for fun because he lost a beatboxing competition.
No, it was. I really liked the mercs in this. I absolutely agree. I think most of them kind of disappear into the background a bit too quickly. They get their one-dimensional character beat and then they're gone. I would have liked to seen a lot more Nightbeat in particular, because also she's a really easy toy to do.
Nightbird, you mean?
I said Nightbird, didn't I? What'd I say?
You said Nightbeat, maybe Freudian slip.
Oh.
We never got Cyberverse Nightbeat.
God. No, we didn't. Oh, no, I wanted to have seen that, because they would have gone hard into the detective thing.
Oh yeah, they would have got it. They would have. I mean, I won't keep repeating myself, but boy, the writers for Cyberverse, the love they showed to kind of us in a way, as best they could, was just so endearing.
Literally in this, we'll get
literally in this episode, yeah.
We'll get on to that in a sec. But the mercenaries I enjoy, like Sound Blaster. The second Sound Blaster appeared, I was just sitting there going like, I'm going to hear a Canadian screaming, and he's a mercenary. Oh no. Because I remember you in the Netflix show.
Oh yeah.
But it was really interesting to me. He's one of the best voice actors. Mark Thompson is one of the best voice actors in the show. He plays a huge number of characters very distinctly. He's Soundwave, he's Tarn, he's Megatron, he's Bugbite, he's Skybite. He's the dude's got talent, and God, I'm tired of the no union.
Oh, actually,
thing.
He's Sound Blaster, not Soundwave. Only because like Soundwave's actor, I want to give a lot of credit to really specifically.
Yeah, Soundwave is Ryan Anders, I want to say. I think he's got the same voice actor as Grimlock. I'm going to check that.
No. Soundwave was the person who played Nick Colley in Street Fighter V. Mark Swint. Yes, you're
right. But yeah, so there's a lot of marks. But Sound Blaster, I loved his intro is incredibly Cyberverse. As you say, just like what was it? You remember what you did to me? And it was just like Soundwave was, no, I don't, because you don't matter.
Yeah,
like you were literally the last thing I was thinking about. And it's like, Jesus Christ. And it's just like, I'm killing planets because I lost as a beatbox competition. Like, with Megatron, like, seemingly picking his third in command this way. This thing fight, just like how Soundwave played.
Yeah, the part where Megatron's like congratulating Soundwave for winning, that whole bit, I'm pretty sure this wasn't the intent, but there's a fun kind of headcanon you can apply to that flashback of like, I wonder if Sound Blaster's misremembering this whole thing as well. Like, maybe the stakes were even less high than the already low stakes we're seeing, and he's like the part where Megatron was involved is like him justifying all the stuff that happened afterwards of like, oh, Megatron even congratulated you, and it's like, no, I don't. What? Probably is not the case, but it's just a fun little thing.
Oh yeah, but I love his color scheme. They gave him Buzzsaw, that was fun too. Like, there's a lot to like about the mercenaries. I wish they did more. Like, because once Trypticon shows up, they really quickly fall into the background. Also Trypticon, I rarely say what the fuck out loud watching TV. I did when I was watching this one, because not only does he show up, oh my god, someone found the bit of his bio that says, like, he looks brutish, but he's actually quite elegant, and turned that into, he's a really bad CEO. He's a really bad CEO. He likes the Dinobots because they look a bit like him, and he wants them to be a new crew we will also treat very poorly and not give sick leave to or anything like that. And then they freeze him, and he's presumably there for eternity.
Yep. It's just,
I love it.
There's a whole lot of just real like this. Cyberverse, as of season 3, when it became Bumblebee: The Cyberverse Adventures, there was also this like odd freedom that suddenly seemed to be given to the entire crew of the show, because it's like, we're not giving you any more money, but whatever, do what you want. You're a YouTube exclusive now. And they just, it felt like that happened, and also they ran as wild as they could with some of this stuff. Because yeah, like just the whole thing of Trypticon showing up, doing all that. Trypticon, by the way, like Astro Train, not even really advertising a toy or anything. There's no big marketing reason for him to be in here. It's Trypticon. And then also, yeah, the gag is, it's not only Trypticon. What if it's Trypticon as like the worst capitalist, basically? The walking CEO / HR department. Like, yeah, it's a good gag. And then the fate of being a mall afterwards is almost like tonally too on the mark. After all that, it's delightful.
Yeah.
The bummer being also, and I've actually heard this is a problem for some folks being able to get into the show, which I can understand, is like, you see characters like Trypticon or Astro Train, and it's like, damn, what a cool character. It's like, yep, you have no toy to purchase, and nor will you ever.
I am so mad about Astro Train, because I think it's the best Astro Train design, to be blunt. If the rumors are true, at least we're getting Shadow Striker, but I think she's going to be more IDW2, and I want the asymmetrical, broken one.
Yeah,
I think it'll be nice if you want Flame War and Shadow Striker together, but like, I want this Shadow Striker.
What I'll say, to be fair to the toy end of it, is an asymmetrical character like Shadow Striker is probably a nightmare to figure out how to produce.
Oh yeah.
So I can see how that's the problem. I hope that we can figure out at least some 3D printed parts and figure out some paint matching to turn asymmetrical Shadow Striker into a Cyberverse Shadow Striker eventually. But yeah, like Trypticon and Astro Train are obviously the biggest ones. There's also the small scale frustrations like Deluxe Windblade also not existing.
Why is there a Deluxe Prowl? Why is there a Deluxe Prowl?
Deluxe Prowl creates a precedent that I have. This is my little harebrained theory that won't pan out, but I have a few months to hold on to it. Cyberverse Prowl sets a precedent whereby, hey, what if in Earthspark Deluxe we suddenly get Earthspark Deluxe Windblade, who's just Cyberverse Windblade?
Oh, I would love it. I would love it so much, because that's what they're doing with Bumblebee. They're riding the Evergreen train, so.
Yeah, so maybe that will be the roundabout way. Also, I will say before someone screams it at this podcast, like, yeah, the Warrior class Windblade's fine. Yeah, she's fine. She fits the slot that I'm talking about, sure. But Deluxe was actually really cool ideas engineering wise, and I would have liked to see that applied to a Windblade.
Absolutely. And it was really, I'll never get over that Deluxe selection, and it's not that I don't like any of the characters in there. Although I will say Prowl is the one I just pause at the most. It's just like, but she was the main character of season 1 in many ways. In many, many ways, she was at least the protagonist. What?
And also, at the worst parts of season 1, she was one of the kind of rocks you could hold on to of being like, this is just a decent, solid cartoon protagonist with a decent, solid voice acting performance. Like, there's anything wrong with the worst parts of season 1 generally had nothing to do with Windblade. So she's not even guilty of any, like, karmic crime for existing in season 1. Like, it's kooky.
I will say, if you ever get a chance, Randolph Hurd did an interview about and like revealed some really interesting things about the production of the show, like the fact that none of them liked the format they were told to use for season 1, and when the eyes came off of it a bit more in season 2, that's when they started doing the show the way they wanted to. They were made to do that split format. Bumblebee can't talk, any of that, and then season 2 happened. Hasbro was kind of getting ready to move on to whichever bit of marketing it was doing. I think it was Bumblebee, and they were just like, maybe then we could do it our own way. Yeah, sure. And it's just like, excellent. And there's such a big jump in quality in season 2.
That fits the narrative I think I just mentioned a few minutes ago. Like you could almost feel the moment that they're, the corporate pressure was like kind of like, oh, whatever, just do your thing. They're like, okay, we're going to do our thing. That actually really fills in a lot of good gaps for me, because like even when they were doing the split, Bumblebee flashback memory sequences, the fact that Bumblebee just talks when he's in his own mind was like them going, yeah, we don't want to do the radio voice thing, so he's just going to talk anyway for most of the show.
Yeah, no, it's it's a really interesting interview.
Like the whole thing, Bumblebee Cyberverse Adventures, is also when Bumblebee kind of stopped being in the show. Is so funny.
Welcome to Bumblebee Cyberverse Adventures. It's about Hot Rod and Soundwave,
and Clobber and Lockdown.
Oh, and here's Dead End.
Yeah. But not to bounce us. Not to bounce us around, but like the other big part of this, as far as like the Mercs, the other side of the Mercs inclusion in this was the Dinobots as well, and Mikey, like that's your whole thing. You're a dinosaurs fan.
I am Disney's and otherwise, I suppose. Well, actually, I don't like the Disney dinosaur movie. But
how'd you like the name Tiny Arms for a guy that looks apparently a lot like Grimlock that we never saw?
Oh my god. I mean, the origin of the Dinobots is a thing that people get way too obsessed about. It's like the origins of female Transformers. Just have it be. No one cares. Jesus. And like, there's been so many stories I think have been made harder because someone feels the need to explain them. But this is the best one. This is the best Dinobot origin. The Dinobots are a race of Cybertronians living off on a colony who got a message that was millions of years old saying, cheer up, we'll all do our best. Let's be happy, and were so inspired their entire race reformatted themselves to be idiots. Led by a man named Tiny Arm, who was murdered.
Beautiful. Yeah, we also never saw.
So was their entire species.
Yeah, there are 4 of them. All the rest are, in fact, canonically, with no vagaries, straight dead, along with their entire planet, because of a beatboxing competition many years prior. But I thought that was also a really cool way to like not forget a part of season 1 that I think could have easily fallen to the wayside canon wise, and to bring it back around. The part where like Grimlock's Grimlock's whole backstory in this show is that he's just like a really good dude who's just like, you know what, even when we face extinction, we're gonna do our best with hard work and courage. And yeah, like like that message, like you said, shapes a whole civilization. Where like, they were so fun. Like, because like you said, they so often try to figure out like, okay, how do we justify dinosaur alt modes? Well, we've got to set some part of this 1 billion years ago. I remember I don't know if we talked about it, but I remember the whole fear when we saw the Dinobots, showing up in toys and stuff was like, oh, geez, this is going to be like some complicated thing where like the whole Grimlock backstory is going to be like some whole, like they were all asleep in a pool of oil somewhere and it's going to be all weird. And so it's like, no, it's not. It's actually going to be funny. And oddly dark, but funny.
Yeah. Also, I've really got to say, love the design. I love the designs for. I think they're very solid Cybertron in ways, but again, fits that evergreen aesthetic. They go really well with Grimlock, whose design I really love anyway. And like Grimlock, they tend to have some of the better action scenes. Swoop is great. I love Swoop's design. I think she's really fun. I like how in the second episode they're really prominent, but it's just like when left to their own devices, they're just kind of like very sweet and annoying because they may not be literal kids, but they're brand new to all this. And it's just like Sludge saying like, I will protect you. I will protect you. Woman who has fought a war for millions of years. I will protect you. Just get him off. Get him off. Get him off.
In fact, the only bummer really out of this toy-wise is that there is at least decent to stand on a shelf toy of everyone but Swoop, because Swoop's toy is based on an older design that is a very good-looking Swoop that was not the one in the show.
Nope, very G1 Swoop that they did not use.
Yeah, who also classic. This is some classic Rid 2015 throwback. Is tied to a Crash combiner.
Yeah. Oh my god, I remember when the Crash combiners were coming out, freaking out. They couldn't figure out oh my god, what's going to happen here? Why is Slug combining with Megatron? Is Megatron going to be the main character? And then it turns out Megatron's dead. Megatron X murdered the fuck out of him. But yeah, and this was the big controversy apart from like people getting annoyingly worked up about Swoop. Who the fuck cares if she's a girl? Oh, fucking children. The characterization of Volcanicus, classic character, much loved combiner Volcanicus. What did you think? Because I don't think any of us predicted this.
I did not, and here's what I'll say. If it rubbed you the wrong way, I get it, because he was very much a kid's show, cartoon show character, and they're allowed to do that, but sometimes those can be annoying, and this was, on that end of the more grating end of that spectrum, absolutely. But what do they have to work with? There is no other portrayal of Volcanicus, because in the funny haha Machinima show, like Volcanicus was like what, basically Grimlock or just making noises. I never actually watched past the part where they combined.
I will never forget the scene because they combine because Predaking shows up for some reason. They combine. He goes and then he starts chasing our heroes. By which I mean, imagine a 1950s comedy like The Munsters, where Frankenstein's monster is chasing you. Imagine the arm position. Now replace the Frankenstein monster with Predaking and Volcanicus. And then they kill Sludge after one episode.
Oh. I didn't know about that part.
It's really fucking bad. I hear you sometimes say, I'm going to watch him one day, and I'm just like, no, you're not. You're not going to watch him because you don't need to.
No, I'm going to someday because it'll take like 20 minutes. And like...
That's 20 minutes you could use rewatching Cyberverse.
It's true. But yeah, I was okay with this I was also okay with this Volcanicus because after spending time with the 4, Dinobot colonists, that made sense that was the unification of those 4 and our Grimlock. I was like, no, it's like there's a logic to this. And like I said, if you just found it annoying, then it's like it was annoying, kind of. But I ended up finding it was kind of cute.
I enjoyed it. Also, I think it was kind of interesting how you basically had a full Cyberverse episode dedicated to him training a combiner. I liked him overall. He took a little getting used to, but again, these 5 are not going to make your badass super warrior. They're going to make a kid, a well-meaning, enthusiastic, really happy kid who thinks he's amazing. And it's some really cool weapons. And I will also say, this design beats the Volcanicus G1 design into the ground like a stake. It's fantastic. And please, if you're ever doing Volcanicus again, this is the design, please. Dragon wings and all.
I'd love it if we got a toy of him. We got like half a toy of him. But like... There's so much stuff just not present on it. It's hard for me to feel it. Like I've seen it floating around now and then, the Ultimate Volcanicus, and I'm always like, oh, I could. He looks enough like the one in the show, I guess. Kind of. He's got the shapes, but there's so much not present that I'm just like, I can't get inspired.
Absolutely. I look at him sometimes. I'm just like, oh, I almost bought you like 3 times. I don't want to really. but I want to at the same time.
He's missing so much. He's missing so much, like, key stuff. Like, a lot of it is color, which I could fix, but like the parts where I'd run into a wall is like I'm gonna double check. Like the heads are swapped on his kneecaps, and they're not nearly as well built in. They look a lot more like weird little knee pads. They're like, obviously tons of color is missing. The Grimlock head in the middle of the chest is like solid gold.
Weird. And it looks weird.
Well, it sticks all the way forward because this thing has this beast mode, which is that part I don't actually mind. I don't mind the beast mode that much.
No, I think it's clever.
Yeah. It's just like the colorization and some of the sculpting choices that rob the bits I like are just like For me, trying to justify buying an Ultimates like $40 Cyberverse toy, there's enough here for me to talk myself out of it. So. But yeah, I'm happy you liked it because I was worried that because I was like, well, if Mikey doesn't like Volcanicus, then I can't say anything because Mikey is the one who gets to make that call. But no, I also agree. This is more exciting. Like I don't mind the Power of the Primes Volcanicus in a capsule because I'm like, you did it once, but yes, from here on out, you probably should do this instead. Like. I don't want to say like the third parties know what they're doing, but like when you do Volcanicus, yes, Swoop's wings should just Predaking onto him.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I think the Power of the Primes one is interesting for them not doing it. And that's why I don't mind it exists. I'm like, I like this with like maybe one add-on kit as like this is G1 Volcanicus, but that's G1 Volcanicus. From here on out, let's do new Volcanici.
Let's fight. Do things that are not clearly being limited by a tail end budget and adherence to G1. Let's just have some creativity there. Big ass wings.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just really like I really enjoyed them. And I think it added stuff to the last episode as well. Which I think it really was really positive. But yeah, it's also an interesting. This episode's kind of interesting because once you do the Dinobots and the mercenaries, apart from Soundwave, everyone else is largely sidelined and you're reading events. Like Shadow Striker having a leadership position is there because she's the one who signs the treaty. There's the willingness to sign the treaty, but you don't start getting a lot of the character focus on the rest of the cast and a lot of the rest of the cast until the next episode, which I actually do think, considering the cast they have, it would have been nice to have maybe 5 minutes of actual conversation going on at that start. So like, what, Optimus, how's Optimus feel about this? How's Hot Rod? How did the people who we know have cross factions? How's Dead End feel about this? Shadow Striker was a relatively minor part of that arc, of the Quintessence arc about the cross faction arc. Like she was big in the second half because she was like Soundwave. She was like clearly not playing on the old Decepticon board anymore. But it was one of those things like the second half of this is so tied into the relationships that form in that Quintessence arc. It would have been nice to have a bit more setup. But overall, it's just such a fun romp. I can critique bits and pieces, but it was just enjoyable. It made me laugh. It gives Soundwave a fantastic couple of lines. Give him a little bit of character development with Laserbeak, which pays off later on. It just and I believe, because I know there was a brand new writer on the team who is one of the main writers. He's going to be one of the main writers with Kat. Oh God, what's her name? Kat.
Oh, Maycat.
Maycat. He's going to be one of the main writers on Earthspark. I don't know.
That's Masai Singleton.
Yeah. I think he really made a good impression, at least on a good, on a show we know had good show running, had good creators, had animators who were willing to be creative, everything else. I've seen people say, "Oh, you could skip this," and I was just like, "No,
I disagree." Yeah,
I strongly
you
disagree.
could. Okay, what I would say is like if your time at such a premium, you only had time for one 44-minute episode, then you could skip the immobilizers and then just take for granted that Volcanicus is there and Trypticon is frozen at the start of the next episode, because it's like, yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff with Transformers you can take for granted. But like this episode is, in a way, just like it's the fun side of the two episodes. Like, part of me wishes that it had been, in fact, just an 80-minute one-shot story about about what the Perfect Decepticon is about. But it's almost more in character for this show to have like the first half be this kind of funny romp with the mercenaries and the Dinobots. And obviously that part also introduces the Dinobots. This part is the toy commercial half of season 4, because the Dinobots were toys, and that maybe single-handedly was what justified on the Hasbro end the production of this season altogether. But no, like as far as skipping it, that's where, like, when people talk about, oh, maybe I can skip the first few episodes of Cyberverse, and I'm always like, if you've ever hate-watched a single film in your entire life, you owe it to me to just watch all of it, because you're talking about skipping literally 10-minute-long episodes to get to more 10-minute episodes where the total runtime is like 90 minutes. So if you've ever hate-watched a Michael Bay film that you know you didn't like, or if you watch it a third time because you knew you didn't like it, you owe it to me to watch all of this. Because you can't quantify that versus you wanting to skip episodes here, in my opinion. I'm making a lot of like big milk the cow hand gestures, by the way, while I'm saying all this. Because I've had this conversation more than once where I'm like, I literally want to shake someone, where I'm like, I get how you're just applying your logic to all your shows to this, but the literally 10-minute long episodes, like the math of this, just watch it. Like, with worst case, oh damn, you hate watched it, but it also took a fraction of the time of any movie you've ever hate watched. Let alone any TV show you might have hate watched. But yeah, I'd agree with you. Like, it's not worth skip. Just watch it. It is worth saying, Masai Singleton. I'm just checking the TF Wiki credits because I never looked into this till actually just now. Masai did not work on the Immobilizers. Masai and Gavin High are both credited writers for the Perfect Decepticon. The Immobilizers is Zach Atkinson and Dan Salgarolo, who I assume worked on other Cyberverse stuff.
That guy, no. Dan, I don't.
Dan worked on Rid 2015 on one episode.
Oh, the Golden Knight.
Yeah, we're both looking at the TIFF wiki.
Yeah, and Zach did Rescue Bots, Robots in Disguise.
Nice.
I don't remember these episodes of our ID 2015, but I haven't seen them since.
Is one of them Two Idiots Steal a Tank?
No.
One
of our mini-cons is missing Be Cool and Prisoner Principles. Be Cool is the one where Bumblebee is trying to be your dad. Yeah, he's trying to be like your dad who's trying to prove he's still cool and like, hey, I'm one of the
Oh, that was
kids.
good! That was a good one!
I remember liking that one.
Oh, no!
There's a couple of episodes
He
like
did.
that.
Zach Atkinson wrote Two Idiots Steal a Tank. That's one of our mini-cons is missing.
Oh!
I always remember because the name of that episode is so unremarkable that I always just remember it as Two Idiots Steal a Tank. But that was a Zach Atkinson joint. That dude's got cred.
Nice. And he's written a lot of Cyberverse, including the Quintessence arc. Like a lot of the Quintessence arc.
Oh, hell yeah.
And Meteor Fire's episode. Hello. And Dweller in the Depths.
Dweller! Oh, jeez. Okay. Yeah,
so
there's good.
Please stay.
There's good stuff going on here.
Please stay. Where are you going, Zach? Zach, come back. Zach.
I did want to add in like a little contextual thing, by the way, just for the way we're talking about this, is because I believe you're on the same page with me here. A lot of the way we're talking about Cyberverse as well is like that Cyberverse's production is not a production that would have led to stuff this loving in a lot of other cases. We got really lucky with Randolph Hurd and the writers and artists who were working on this actually actively wanting to do cool Transformer stuff in spite of what they were given to work with.
Randolph Hurd, actually, I just want to interject here. Randolph Hurd, again, really interesting case. Wasn't familiar with Transformers, but one of the things he was told by, I think it was that Mike guy at Hasbro, who left, and then other producers came in, like very early on when he was hired. before he started getting like the pitch for like, okay, do the show this way. Remember that 10% of your audience is adults. Write for adults, and the children will follow.
That's really good advice.
That's what he was told. I found that fascinating because suddenly I know exactly, like, when people talk about what's marketed at adults, like how much of it is marketed, we know we know where we fall into the grand scheme. But like, and he just said like, oh, so when we were doing stuff and doing show stuff, I just started doing stuff I wanted to do. I thought that because he was going in apparently with the attitude like, well, how do I market to kids? And he was like, nah, just market it to yourself. Oh, cool.
Yeah. I think it's worth mentioning, like, in all that language, I really like hearing that, because to me, write for adults doesn't mean the Netflix show. It just means have fun and be a little bit clever. You know, like that's like, all you need to do to write for adults.
Many versions of write for adults. There's Prime, there's animated, there's Cyberverse, there's some of the He-Man stuff. There's so many. There's TMNT 2012. Like. Mm-hmm. Writing with the idea that some of your audience is going to be old enough to own a car doesn't mean that you get grimdark because everyone talks very, very, very slowly.
I will say I quietly promised myself I wouldn't spend too much time dunking on the Netflix trilogy because it is what aired, quote unquote, alongside this stuff. But we got to throw in a few. It is pertinent to the period.
Oh yeah.
But that's also why, like, with Cyberverse, because there are a lot of folks who just don't really like it, and they will say like, "Oh, the voice acting's not all that great" or whatever, and it's like, a lot of those opinions are not necessarily like wrong. It's just like the context is so important to me, and especially the palpable passion behind a lot of the stuff that is good in Cyberverse is just doubly effective to me because of the context of what the show is. That's why I stick up for a lot of the voice performances as well, because like
I really do these days. I think honestly, like, the worst performance I would say that was a main one was Hot, and he really came around. And before that was G-York, and they killed him.
Well, and before that was Optimus, and then he got better.
He got a hell of a lot better.
And I think it's important, like, whenever that comes up, it's like, this is all under the context of like the approach from day one being go non-union so it's cheaper and faster is bad. That is bad on a corporate level. That stuff ain't cool. That stuff ain't defensible. It's just that I just simply cannot apply that to the actors themselves. That stuff is a rot from the corporate root. And this show had tons of that rot all over the ceiling and the walls when the show started, and it shone in spite of that rot. And I think the vocal performances are a part of that as well, because it's like, yeah, a lot of these actors were non-union. That doesn't mean they're bad actors, but it does mean that there was less of a traditional process behind the entire recording process. And it also meant that these actors were probably way more abusable should the show have decided to do so. And they were all, given direction that they were given. Jake Foshi has always been hired because he did funny Vine impersonations of Peter Cullen. And it's like, that does leave a rotten seed of where his involvement comes from. It's just, as far as I know, Jake Foshi himself is not part of that rot. And I feel like, especially season 3 onwards in Cyberverse, they not only was his performance getting better, and also specifically more his own, and it wasn't just him doing Peter Cullen, it was Jake Foshi doing Optimus Prime. They wrote this soft character arc that was almost metatextual of Cyberverse Optimus Prime is getting really tired of having to be Optimus Prime. It's just his nature, it's who he is. But he's not really into it, and boy, he'd just like to retire happily to the country and, fix walls and stuff and be a handyman.
Milk some space cows.
Yeah, and so I just love how his arc became almost the story of Jake Foshi's involvement with the show, of like this dude is actually would just like to be his own character. The one thing he's kind of tired of is people going, "Hey, say an Optimus Prime speech." say one shall stand, one shall fall. Talk about how till all are one. Talk about freedom's the right of sentient things, and it's like the whole. I put up
like hearing the word the Matrix.
Yeah, I put up the clip on Twitter actually just before we recorded because I was remembering it like in at the start of Perfect Decepticon when he does the speech to open the mall, and he's just reading off the page, and then when he gets to the part where it's like a shopping mall where the prices will be fair and equitable, the freedom of good shopping will be. I'm sure at some point they were going to have the freedom to good prices is the right of all sentient shoppers or something. But like the way that he just lets out, there's this like Bumblebee quietly going like, "Go and use the axe, chop the thing," and Optimus just lets out this really tired sigh. Like it's just a perfect encapsulation of what I think they did with something that like I'll use the word the soil had a rot in it on day one, and they managed to flourish in spite of it. That's why I stick up for a lot of that stuff. And I hope Jake Foshi doesn't turn out to be a little shit of some kind, because then I'm going to be super mad if all of this work I put into genuinely appreciating his performance gets screwed up because, like, I don't know, he turned out to be some kind of weird fascist or something. As far as I know, there's no proof he is, and there's no even indication he is. I, in fact, don't know a thing about him. I can't really find readily available information of him from, like, right now. There's the Ellen interview and stuff, but that doesn't really tell me anything.
So if
anyway,
anyone does start talking about that, we know where the rumor started.
It's someone who doesn't appreciate his performance. That's what it is.
Go on.
I was going to say I would like to someday, like, just if it's ever possible, talk to him about this weird era where it's like, so you were hired almost as a meme, so they didn't have to pay for Hollywood price Peter Cullen. Like, what did that do to you as a performer? You know, like your big acting break was on the back of Vine impersonations. Like, was that like a chip on your shoulder, for instance? Like, I would love to know. Or, you know, in the case of the Netflix show especially, but also in a way, Cyberverse, was it frustrating for your direction to always be like, say it more like Peter Cullen does? Because, like, I would go nuts working under those auspices after a year.
I have had a problem with the movie-esque colonization of Optimus Prime in media since Prime's days. Like, it has been a chip on my shoulder Prime, for a long time.
With Prime, I always have trouble saying it for Prime because it's like, also they literally hired Peter Cullen, so like it like they rides this fuzzy line of like it's like this fuzzy line of like, how much of this is just that's Peter Cullen versus like, well, I mean, the direction is there actually it's an odd parallel. The direction is there when you watch Prime versus the live action movies, the same way as with Jake Foshi when you watch the Netflix trilogy versus Cyberverse of like, you give him an inch to do his own thing and he actually does. Like in Prime, the Orion Pax sequence, for instance, the amnesia sequence where like, yeah, like Peter Cullen just gets to act like this guy who has Peter Cullen's voice but isn't Optimus Prime, and like it's a cool moment. I don't want to skip all the way. I don't want to skip all the way past Immobilizer if you got more to say about it, but like I will say I do have a lot more love for. Go.
I was about to go on to Optimus, to be honest, because I was thinking like we've covered it, like it had fun action scenes and everything else, but it was just this wonderful romp. But it was like, I think the meat of these is very much of season 4 is very much the second half, and I really wanted to touch on Optimus because I think this is one of the most interesting Optimus arcs we've had in years. This guy who we learn once they start actually being able to play with him, like mid season 2, we learn like he is very good at what he does, but he's not exactly happy doing what he does. It's not like he's a leader because he's going out there to inspire people. He's a socially awkward guy who's kind of uncomfortable in any kind of situation that isn't about giving orders. And he was happiest when he was out in the middle of nowhere helping some guys put up a farm. Because like no one was like asking him to give a speech or lead a party. And all he wants to do is just like quiet and relaxed and everything else. And he gets the world he wants. He gets it. He finally has it. He's still being made do things he doesn't want to do. He's still being made stand in front of the crowd when he doesn't want to stand in front of the crowd. And then he's confronted with kind of his worst nightmare, which is Megatron's idea worked. The Decepticons worked somewhere in twisted way, and he's constantly trying, like with Tarn, he's constantly trying to get Tarn to engage with the person Megatron became, not the person Megatron was on his side of the world. Like he's challenging him, and he's outraged by him, and he can never get through. And he's got fun lines. He's got that funny line with Wheeljack and the teleporter. Just like, excellent Wheeljack. And just like, well, Jake Foshi gives some great comic timing deliveries, but then this Optimus ends up in just this wonderful place of, he says goodbye to someone who they'd come to see as a friend, and he walks outside and says, I'm done. You don't need me anymore, because even if I was still here, you all got this. Unicron could show up tomorrow, and I don't feel the need to be there, because the 4 or 5 people standing right in front of me will be enough to keep everyone going. And it's just like, what are you going to do? And just like, I'm going to go enjoy myself. And I nearly fainted, because when was the last time like anything outside of IDW even allowed an Optimus to say things like have fun or enjoy himself?
Yeah.
Like,
I love that it also opened with it opened with Bumblebee, like that little exchange opened with Bumblebee going like, Optimus, what are we going to do now? I don't know what to do. I'm so used to war. And it's Optimus is like, I'm going to do the best thing for you. And I'm going to say, I don't know. Figure it out.
And then it ends in a hug.
It ends in a hug from the same angle as the 86 movie thing, but like almost in a warmer way, where it isn't just people chanting till all are one. It's like they actually are one, because they're a group of comrades outside a bar, and one of them's like, I'm skipping town for a bit. You all can handle this. There's just a lot of good vibes and feelings from the end of it, which, given, the folks working on it, like, I like that also seemed to be the motivation. Is like, this sort of, it is a more modern storytelling idea, I think, for cartoons of like, what if the end result is just we feel good, as opposed to like, evil has been thwarted and peace will reign. It's like, no and no, what if we just feel good? I like seeing that applied to Transformers. I think maybe for the first time, really, like the more modern notion of like the mythology does not have to reach a mythological conclusion. We can just end on a nice note,
Yeah, we were faced with a challenge. We dealt with the challenge, and we're moving on with our. And just the idea that Optimus is literally just gonna, he's not leaving anyone's life. He's not going off on a grand quest. It's not the end, the death of Optimus Prime. It's just like, I'm giving you both halves of the Matrix, and I'm leaving the name Optimus behind me. It must be grand. I'm falling into Unicron and dying and being mythologized by Arthur afterwards. I'm still your friend. Still gonna be in your life, but some days I just want to sit in my porch, and I want to drink to your health.
Yeah, and there was a soft implication. Like, a lot of this is unspoken, and some of it is, I will totally admit, some of it is kind of me headcanoning, because that's just what I do. I don't have to put effort into doing it. It happens naturally. But like, I think it's pretty well implied that it's like Optimus is also not saying like, not my problem. He's just saying, I'm gonna go enjoy the peace. If Unicron shows up, obviously he's probably gonna come back and go like, yo, what's going on? Does everyone need some help? But like, it was just this nice calm tone of like, yeah, I brought beer, and I brought my tool. I have a toolbox now. It helps me build walls that have fallen over. I can rebuild them. I have a trailer. It's just full of tools and stuff. It doesn't turn into a battle station. I don't know how that works. In fact, boy, if they ever did a season 5 of Cyberverse, I want it to be about Optimus like having this new like little buddy called Roller. Just show me Cyberverse's version of Roller.
Oh my god.
But yeah, it was a beautiful ending sequence, and after probably the most unexpected twist on an ending for Cyberverse that ever could have been put to pen, or pen to paper, because in tandem, like, Optimus was one side of a coin. That coin being, how do you as almost a superheroic, supervillainous character from a war, how do you function in a post-war version of your setting? In Optimus's case, he was the one who knew how to step away and wanted to step away, but was able to still help out up until the end. And then on the other side of the coin, you have Soundwave, who is trying his best to be the Decepticon end of what Optimus is doing, but knows he can't. and has what a friggin' cool ending for Soundwave. That was that.
Oh my god, I
straight
cried.
up jaw dropped me. Yeah, me too.
I cried. They're so like I loved Soundwave. I like Soundwave in season 2. I friggin' loved him in season 3. He was my favorite character. And the fact they kept that, like I said, they kept him in. He's in the Decepticons, but he's clearly not gone oh, I don't like anyone on that side anymore. He's just like, I'm in with my team, but yeah, and he's in that final scene because the animators are wonderful, and they added him and Shadow Striker in, and he's got this great line in. He's got these great lines in Mobilizer, and then this is his story. Perfect Decepticon is about him in many, many ways, and it's like he uses the Decepticon tactics, and he is ruthless. He's still ruthless, but he's not a monster. He's become such a different person. And like you said, he realizes this is not his world anymore, and he in a way, like Optimus, he's been left behind. And like, probably he would have tried real hard to take part in post-war Cybertron. He would have tried real hard, but when your best friend is Hot Rod, you've only got so much you can do.
I choose self-sacrifice.
I choose self-sacrifice. I see my... If you told me, like, I love IDW Soundwave, but, like, if you told me there was going to be a TV Soundwave who would see Hot Rod, his closest friend, get the shit kicked out of him, and that is the moment he says no more, I would not have believed you. And
or
that's exactly what happens.
Even something as simple as, like, hey, there's going to be a cartoon that references the end of IDW1 Soundwave. In any remote way, shape, or form, I would have been like, "What are you talking about? They're not going to do. They wouldn't make room for that." But like you said, like I remember when I had the realization after I watched it that like the episode title was not about Arn, it was actually Soundwave.
Yeah,
because he was the perfect Decepticon in every way. He was the Decepticon who wanted freedom above all other things. Like he wanted to unshackle the shackled. And that, like, the real tearjerker of the end of the episode isn't so much that Soundwave dies. Spoilers. It's
so cool. He died so cool.
I mean, and that was really cool as well. The way, like for the budget they had, that was the coolest way to do it. For the resources available. But that his final act was like donning literally a mind, like a mind control helmet. He has it for 1 second, and what he does is, rather than like I'm gonna aim all the perfect Decepticons to wipe out Tarn, it's like I am going to free the perfect Decepticons. I'm gonna unshackle their minds and end this whole cycle. Like I love that it's also just like a split second, and then Tarn is literally just beating the helmet back off of him. But it's like that was what he decided to do with his 1 second that he had to like change the course of that entire like near species of Cybertronian. Was like, I am going to give them freedom, and then I'm going to friggin' eliminate this, almost in a way like this defect of what they could be. Like this, like the one of them who was broke free, but was like, I'm going to be even worse than Megatron. And he's like, well, I'm going to erase this one after I've given the rest of them the chance to decide to be better. It's a beautiful ending, and I think it is going to be, like I said a little while ago, because I think just a lot of people will end up not having seen this. It's going to be there in Transformers trivia contests for years to come, like some questions around the ending of Cyberverse Soundwave, because it is absolutely not predictable until the moment it happens. Even within the episode, like I'm sure some people could predict it, but I think on a broad level, like this was a legit twist. It shocked me, and I loved it when it happened. It was a swerve in an absolute positive direction. Fit the character perfectly. When I say I didn't expect it, it's because I was like, I just wouldn't assume, even though I was enjoying Cyberverse by this point, I was like, this is maybe outside the purview still of what Cyberverse is trying to do. And then they're like, no, what if it ain't? Where like the subversion will be afterwards, when Hot Rod is like eulogizing by kind of like, trash talking or eulogizing. Like, remember all the evil stuff he did? What a great evil Decepticon and our friend. It's like that was kind of weird, but it had a gallows humor feel to it.
I liked it because it's just like, if he heard me saying nice things about him, he would not let me live it down. So I'm going to say the things he would rather I said. Like,
That's true.
It's a real thing I have in all. Like, this is weirdly real life thing. I don't like the artificial positivity that comes with eulogizing people, especially when strangers are eulogizing people. But we need to remember the best of that person. I'm just like, I think you need to remember the person and what they meant to you, and what they meant to you was not this idealized version that you're implanting in your head. Just like, I really liked what Hot Rod did. I really liked it. It was just like, he locked me up, he played dubstep, he was a dickhead, and he was my friend, and I am going to miss him a lot. And we all owe him so much. And I love, that felt so much more real to me. It felt weirdly, it felt less TV. It's like, remember the time, Clobber, he told you to kill me? Like, oh yeah. It was such a culmination because I really enjoyed Hot Rod and Soundwave. I really enjoyed how they bounced off each other. And I love Hot Rod's arc in Cyberverse, which really comes together because ultimately it's not Optimus' story by the end either. He is a tertiary character, really. He's a prominent one, but he's a tertiary character. And the fact that so much of Hot Rod and Soundwave's arcs are intertwined, and the last big relationship moments we get in the big action scene are not Megatron and Soundwave. It's not Optimus and Bumblebee. It's not Starscream. It's not Grimlock. It's the most important organically formed relationship in this series is the one that gets the focus. And it's just like, the fact Soundwave literally sees what happens and looks at Tarn and says, "You're going to regret that." And it's just like, it was so organic and nice to me. So, I mean, it's cheesy that he gave the lines, but to me, it's like they were just a perfect encapsulation of what this show means to me, which is, I've always said, it is the bravest Transformers. Because they are willing, in an age where everything is turning towards what was yesterday and saying, remember that. This was the first series, not just Transformers, but in a while, that was based off an existing franchise that didn't do that. It said, look what we can be. Everything else is saying, look what we were. This turned around and said, look what we can be. And I'm actually getting emotional talking about it because it meant that much to me that moment. Like, it was, and I cried. I honest to God cried as like, they all look at the thing and Soundwave and there's no body and Laserbeak lands and just like, oh right, this is one of my all-time favorite takes on Soundwave and he's just vaporized himself in a bad No! And it doesn't help that Mark Swint's really good at him. He's a really good voice actor for Soundwave. Like, he is a fucking highlight of the series. Yeah. But I have so much positive about Soundwave.
I agree with you. Like Mark Swint kicked ass as Soundwave, and the one of the other bummers, right, about the like I said, the kind of rot at the base level of, you know, the approach Hasbro had to the series of like, we're gonna go non-union, we're gonna, you know, et cetera, is like, when someone is a highlight like Mark Swint, I don't think they're gonna get the recognition they deserve in the long run, from our fandom at least. And that is also part of the reason why I tend to talk up these actors when I think they did a good job in a show like this, because like they're gonna get a little bit forgotten as time goes on, and I hope I can do my part to prevent that from happening to the degree that I fear it would, if that makes any sense. I was trying to think. We mentioned Soundwave, so we should probably talk about, you know, the red herring perfect Decepticon, which is Tarn. I want to say the first time Tarn has ever been a named speaking role character in Transformers media that involved audio and visual stuff in motion.
Yes, Mark Thompson made him.
Yeah, what an interesting take, I think, on like doing Tarn in this show. Of like, obviously it's not the DJD Tarn, but it's like, in some ways maybe a scarier Tarn, in some ways less scary, in some ways more scary. Because it's like this was one of these perfect Decepticons who had like broken broken free of the chain, but broke free and then took the wrong road afterwards. The performance I actually really enjoyed. Like it wasn't like it was not like I just said, it was not IDW Tarn the voice. Finally, this was just a Tarn. But I also don't mind that because it in a way does the work to immortalize Tarn as a Transformers character versus Tarn as basically James Roberts' character, which is not a bad thing, obviously. But like it means Tarn like exists in a wider breadth now, and we also see that with like Ultimates Tarn coming up, probably Legacy Tarn coming up because Walmart lists the next 5 years of toys every summer, I guess. So yeah, I enjoyed this Tarn. I actually really like the concept that there's also this entire race of Tarn lookalikes who have just discovered freedom, and I wonder how if they will in their first acts of sentience go like, this is how I'm going to alter my chassis to be who I am rather than who I was designed to be. And like, what if like 10, 20 years down this timeline, like the perfect Decepticons are like these Tarn-like Transformers. They all kind of resemble Tarn, but they all have their own thing, I also thought it was cute that the way that we identify who Tarn is, like, Tarn's the one whose arm got ripped off. That's the easy visual cue. Because I was like, yeah, that's kind of cute. That is cute in a this is the budget we have to work with kind of way as well. But yeah, I liked Tarn. I think given that the intro to this episode also was kind of hinting that it would be Megatron X. Like I liked that this. I thought this was more interesting than if it was Megatron X. Nothing against Megatron X, but like, yeah. Like
Megatron X is just evil Megatron, and it's just like cool. That's like most Megatrons, but cool.
Yeah, like we've seen, I think, everything Megatron X has to show us, really, in that appearance he had at the end. Like that was sort of enough, in my opinion. But no, Mikey, like, how are you feeling about Tarn? Because I feel like I never kept up with the discourse around him when this aired, so I've been curious how other people felt about him.
I mean, I had my like, holy fuck, it's Tarn 3, because I was watching it while it aired before the leak started and everything else, so like I was able to go like, I remember distinctly watching season 3 on TV like a savage, and there's just this hologram character rotating in a scene, and I'm just like, was that fucking Tarn? And I went back and rewatched it half an hour later and just like, that was fucking Tarn! Like, I blew my mind. I really love the take on him, to be honest. I remember like people this was what got some people watching Cyberverse, because Tarn was doing the rounds. And like, so yeah, I think it's a really interesting take. Like this thing that was never meant to have a mind of its own, that somehow broke free of it after they're all trying to kill each other infinitely because they've lost their boss and they don't understand, but they're all physically identical. So like, how does anyone come out on top? And they're just following instinct more than anything else. But Tarn, having him come across as intelligent and manipulative, I thought was fun. And having him basically come across as what he thinks Megatron is. Like, maybe it's more like what Megatron X was, but he thinks Megatron is. And like, he's sinister and evil and everything else. And I killed you. But like, he gets blatantly confronted, and he's just like, you are Optimus, like, if you keep forcing these soldiers to fight and die at my hands because I'm going to kill them because they're trying to kill me, you are worse than the people that Megatron rose up against. And his response is, that's fine, next. Just like, really liked it. And he doesn't seem to want to lead the Decepticons on a basis of a vision. He just wants to lead, and he's a Decepticon.
Yeah.
And just the complete disregard he has for everyone else around him. I thought it was really, really fun. And he played off really well against Shadow Striker. I thought she had some great moments with him. And again, Mark Thompson, again, I think he did Megatron. He did so many actors and characters in this. And he's another one of those ones I think is like, that's a guy I want to see back. I want to see him. I want to see Mark Swin. I want to see Ryan Anders. I want to see a good few people back from this show because they did a really good performance. And Mark Thompson has wonderful range, and really added a human gravitas to it. It's not like I am the evil leader kind of gravitas. It's like he feels like a guy, just a really nasty one. And I laughed that how do we show Tarn's different? We have him with one arm. And like I like that his big move towards the end wasn't like, oh, I'm a perfect Decepticon, I'm going to kill you on. It's like he gets incredibly frustrated and teleports in 1,000 of them. It was just a really good idea. And I love, again, like, you have a limited budget. You can't make any new models. You used all your new models on Immobilizer. You can't make anything new. Okay, can we take the arm off one? We can do that. Yeah. I have an idea.
And give him a funny hat for the ending.
Yeah.
So he sticks out more if we have 1 million of them.
Oh, yeah. And also, like, bringing him in brought in Thunderhowl as well, which I always appreciate. I also love Thunderhowl and Soundwave. It's just like, do it. Do it. Do it. Stop talking and just do it. I just Soundwave snarking at everyone in this, like, help me combiner. Just like, yeah, sure. But like his relationship with Soundwave was really interesting to me because he thinks you need a number 2 like Soundwave. And he doesn't understand who Soundwave was. And he did, like, that wonderful moment of just, like, I serve Tarn like I serve Shockwave. Like,
yeah.
That a line that makes no sense if you do not know anything about this series. Because Wave, like, is long gone at this stage.
Wave was, in fact, never a ship. All due respect, I respect where Wave came from, but I kind of think it's fit those characters that it's like, actually no, they just hate each other. It's not tsundere. They just hate each other.
And it's okay. You don't have to like everyone you're working with.
Also, Shockwave clearly shipped with Wheeljack. I don't get why everyone went to Wave when Jackwave was right there.
Absolutely. But like, just a really nice take in it. Like, and what's great about him as well, he is a bit 2-dimensional in a way as well, because it lets him expand on characters like Soundwave, like Shadow Striker, like Optimus. They all get moments based on his actions, and I think that's really strong writing.
He is what I call I coined this from a Kamen Rider movie. He is Mega Hex perfect, which is that he is a perfect villain to exist, to die at the end, to make everyone else be even cooler. And that's not a dig on Tarn. It's just that, like, that is why I don't mind that Tarn kind of had like a bit of a one-track arc. You know, he had a swerve and a flip, but there was not a whole lot of layer to him. But it's because he was there to be the massive force that all these characters we've gotten to know for 3.5 seasons. This is where everything culminates. This is the thing they have to overcome, and he, I think, suited that role really well in this episode. That also kind of runs me through most of what I kind of have on my own plate for this. Like, really, if anything else, it's just that, like, this left things in a way where I'm fine. Like with season 3, I'm fine with where this ended, but also I'm so curious what the Cyberverse universe looks like with all of these perfect Decepticons freed, and with Optimus Prime getting his piece, and with Shadow Striker and Bumblebee kind of like, in a way,
being
de
buds,
facto,
kind of. Being buds and in charge.
Being buds and de facto being a little bit in charge. Like, it seems like they're the ones that everyone's kind of turning to, because Windblade and Chromia want to go to Caminus. It sounds like Hot Rod doesn't really want to be a leader at all. Like, the impression you get from his one line at the end, to me, again, reading into it a bit, is that he maybe would love to go to Velocitron if it still existed, but since it doesn't, he's like, well, I kind of want to go away too somewhere. I just don't know what to do. It just seems like Bumblebee and Shadow Striker are the ones who would be willing to, like, not be the leaders of the civilization, but be the ones who at least, like, suggest, like, hey, what if we do this? And I want to know what that looks like. Maybe a comic someday. I don't know.
Maybe. Shadow Striker looked so happy when she did the hand on the shoulder. She looks so happy and just like, well, I'm involved, and then Sludge just hits her from the just like everyone hugs. No. I do want to. That is something we like. There's the Decepticons get a lot of focus in this one because it's also kind of like, what are they? Like, you've got the Decepticons who aren't thinking for themselves, who are kind of like Dead End. God love Dead End. He's just kind of like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You've got Lockdown, who puts his friendship before his faction. Which I thought, giving Lockdown a fucking moment in this. Thank you. Just thank you. And there's lots of stuff like that going on, and Dead End gets his smart arse moment in the fight. And also, it's not really something to go over, but I think certainly choreography-wise, like limits of the budget and everything else, but choreography-wise, the last fight is solid. It has some really good moves in it.
Yeah.
Like they use Volcanicus well. They also make it so that it doesn't feel like they're overpowering these guys. It's like you're fighting automatons. They do not think for themselves.
Yeah.
But I really want to touch on Shadow Striker because what a fucking character journey. From day one to day end. And I just like, again, she's not one of the strongest voice performances, but she's a solid voice performance. Deanna McGovern plays her. She also played Clobber in this. Clobber's voice actress didn't come over from season 3. Which is a shame because I really like Clobber. But who also gets some good moments in this. But Shadow Striker going from someone who was introduced as a 2-dimensional villainess. And I say villainess because she's very tied into the classic femme fatale thing of she's a woman who hates the male protagonist. And it's like, if this was any other franchise, that would turn into like, and she kind of thinks he's hot. Which they did kind of do with Black Arachnia, but in animated. But instead, her journey is it becomes about her and like, oh, she regrets Prowl dying. Oh, she gets over her hatred of Bumblebee. She helps she appreciates what Windblade did. She appreciates the training they did in the Quintessence arc, learning to fight with the Autobots. That sticks in her mind. That doesn't leave her. And she's so outraged at Soundwave. She's so angry at him. And she's playing the same game he was for a while. But she's so mad at him because she thinks he's genuine and she thinks he's turned his back on the peace process. That I do not want to kill these people anymore. I do not want this fight to go on. And it feels very natural to me how they played her and like how she seems so strong at the end where she said like, no, I'm not playing by your rules. And I love the bit where Optimus spots her, thinks she's going to get shot by Soundwave, and then like takes him and Taryn down with one of the other soldiers. Just like, there's no like this us or them anymore. It's like she's one of us. She's a Cybertronian. I am keeping her safe. And at the end, like she's almost certainly, she's teamed up with Laserbeak now. Like Soundwave was one of her closest friends, really. And she is going to probably lead the Decepticons in the New World. They've got challenges facing them, but she's part of that group in the end. She's part of that group hug at the end because she has come so far and changed so much that, she deserves to be part of that core group that are hugging to say goodbye to Optimus and to us. Like, I would have really disliked if thinking of it now, I would have really disliked if the last thing you saw was her in the bar with Laserbeak. It would have been a nice, cute moment, but that was it. But now, like, no, actually, that 30-second scene for her adds so much gravitas. And it's like, man, the Decepticons in this show are cool.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, for a show that demonstrated that it was ready to do it if they wanted to, like, she also was kind of covered in death flags to a degree.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she was a character whose ending very much could have been, like, succumb to revenge or sacrifice self to protect Bumblebee to prove that she changed kind of thing. And I always like it when a character who has, like, a vengeance arc gets to, like, end that arc by, like just not acting on the vengeance part. The vengeance part gets overcome by character development, because that is what Vengeance's story is. Like, there's never an ending for it that is like, and then I got my revenge, and then I tried to get my revenge but died instead. Like, that's the rote way to do Vengeance.
Hey, Game of Thrones season 8.
Yeah. Or I mean, there's an entire trilogy of movies about Vengeance, by the way, that is worth watching. Where it's the first time I ever got the notion about this, that like the story of revenge is actually about how the only way out is to not do it, you know, and that she kind of got to have that sort of story arc. I think was really cool. And yeah, the Decepticons are just like you know, it wasn't it wasn't the world's deepest thing in the world, but like I like that in this episode, you know, when faced with, hey, I'm going to retask you all with being season 1 cartoon villains again. A whole lot of them were just kind of like, I don't wanna. Like,
I'm good.
I've had somewhere between 1 to 3 seasons of character development. I don't want to anymore. Yeah, it's a really cool capstone, and like I said, it also it's entirely built around that thing I mentioned of like this show ends on a note of just a good feeling as opposed to like the end of the conflict, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. It's like, it's just, hey, we're done. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. I want to double check actually with who did the voice on the one who spoke at the end. Yeah, it was a different voice actor. I think Ryan Nichols was the one who explained what Soundwave did, basically.
Oh, yeah, that voice caught me off guard as well when they did that one. It's like he sounds so
I loved it. That in fact was Volcanicus's voice actor.
Oh dear, the actors in the show are underappreciated.
I agree.
But
yeah, that about runs out of the stuff I had in mind.
Yeah, same really. I'm just looking over things like we talked about the action a bit. We talked about like it looks good, but it's not a movement ahead of the animation of the show. Still got the same kind of Foley issues, I think, which is something I've always been a little bit critical.
Well, I thought it was cute this time. The main one that sticks out to me because I just had checked it out before we recorded is in the final sequence when like the 4 perfect Decepticons are pounding on Volcanicus. And it's just like tink, 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 tink. And I was like, that's, you know what? I think it's funny now. It's just these anemic little tink noises.
Tink, 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 tink. I do have one thing though. One thing I think it would be really, really amiss to ignore. And that is very simply, many of us appreciated this show. Clearly, the people making this show appreciated a lot of us because in Immobilizer, there is a scene that I have never seen before in a Transformers thing to the level, which was the datapads with Cybertronian text, which when translated, translates into a number of Transformers fans from the internet, and not just big name ones, not just Optibotimus or something like that. There were people on here you'll never, if you're, there's names like, there's Tio on there, Tio Adams is on there. Apparently, again, like that interview, just like, oh yeah, like we just watched a lot of like different stuff and everything like that, and like we really got into his reviews, and just like he got in. Rodimus Primal is on there. Kian Carlisle, who actually did the interview Randolph heard, he's on there. But then you've got like one Dragon Keeper 19600, who is a small YouTuber who does just TV reviews, and very rare one. She does maybe 2 or 3 a year. Commodium Cam is there. He's fairly big for Transformers YouTube. But then you've got Jillian Jones. Jillian Jones is a person who was very vocal about being a fan of the show, but she wasn't a name. If you look at her Twitter, she has 85 followers.
The way I always thought of it was the way I thought of it. I should also say at one point, someone on Facebook told me I was on the datapad, and I was like, "Dang, that's cool." And then I found out I wasn't, and I was like, "That's also fine. Like, I feel bad now that I was talking as though I was, and I wish people would not tell me things that are not true.
But you say that was also fine, but was it like, that's also fine, and it just like, everything turns gray, there's suddenly a lot of rain in front of your face, it's zooming in slowly on your eye?
I was like, that's also fine, because like, I've only really been tweeting about this show. Like, it'd be weird if there was recognition there. But also, to me, the recognition the show gave, I thought was really remarkable, because it was recognition to I'm trying to think of the right way to put this. My immediate wording is, it gave recognition to a younger generation of fans than the folks who usually get called out. It wasn't calling out people from Usenet. It wasn't calling out people who made friends with Aaron Archer's team in the aughts at BotCons. It was calling out people whose names are important to fans who are under 30, is the way I would put it. And it came from obviously a love of TF Wiki as well. And that something I've learned over the last few years, the TF Wiki is very much like not 100%, but there are a lot of younger fans who are the backbone of the TF Wiki now. And it felt like this was a really
transition. Like for comics, for instance, like McFeely no longer is like the main comic. Like, it's been a huge thing on there. Also, it turns out I secretly have been writing Grimlock officially for years and not realized it. Because I wrote that bio years ago to try and incorporate a lot of different stuff that was like really contradictory, and now it just keeps going up at Transformers, and it's really fucking weird to me. Oh no!
I think it was just a really cool, loving show of support to like the fans who are going to matter for a long time. Not the individuals even, but just like that part of our community. It was the first time that I felt like one of my personal mission statements actually got realized, which is that there are no elder fans who control this fandom, because we've had so many on-ramps that like, you know, I hate the term because it's not accurate, but, you know, like the wiki kids or something like that, you know, like or you know, people who aren't toy reviewers who got famous in like 2008, you know, like that, you know, the fandom doesn't belong to anyone, and the Cyberverse, especially being the show,
if I remember right, by the way, the worst kind of scum.
Terrible, especially the ones from BC. Thankfully, I'm Toronto born and bred. So,
are you just going to start saying like, I'm from Toronto, eh?
Well, that's not a Toronto accent. I thought she knew you're Canadiana.
I wanted to say the line.
But I guess the thing I'm trying to say is, like, it was really cool to see Cyberverse, a show that I think a lot of the older generation had kind of passed up, did its big fandom love not to that older generation necessarily. And not in like a snarky way either. It was just out of sheer love. Like, my understanding was like a lot of those names were just like, because those were like when the Cyberverse crew tried to think of like, what fans would we want to shout out, those were the names that came to mind. The TF Wiki came to mind. Like, I was looking at the TF Wiki's notes here, where apparently Randolph Hurd said in an earlier draft of the script, the Wit Wiki was going to be called the Tiff Wiki. And then they changed it to the Wit Wiki. And then apparently the Wit Wiki was going to be what the TF Wiki was going to be called, which I didn't know.
Oh, God.
But no, that part I think was just, it was wonderful. I just having rewatched that sequence, I'd never realized until today how long they hold a shot on those data pads too, because they were like, we know that you want to see this, and we know you're going to do the cipher translation on the cybertext, so like, we're also going to hold for a beat on the data pads as though they matter, because they in fact do, but only to the people who notice that we held on them for a beat. It was wonderful. Also, it was wonderful seeing the reactions of people who were on the datapad going like, because again, I feel like for the longest time it was like, oh, a fan is going to get referenced in Transformers. Yeah, it's going to be one of the Usenet people from '97, because that's what Beast Wars did. You know, it's going to be people it's going to be McFeely, it's going to be Monzo, you know, et cetera. And
yeah, like this code on here is going to be a reference to Monzo. Never done that before.
Yeah, because Monzo is using a Transformers name, so I guess it's like it's not an easier thing to fit in, but like it's a go-to, because also Monzo is lovely, and you're like, yeah, if you're going to reference someone, it's probably going to be Monzo, because Monzo's a lovely person. But no, this was fantastic. And I hope that I think that Earthspark and shows that have a little bit more of like, the you can smell Hasbro standing right behind the show is probably going to have less room to do such things. This also feels like something that Cyberverse was able to do because Cyberverse got so much elbow room by the end. That like they didn't have to like justify doing this, and even then, like I feel like even though they used the cybertext cipher, like they probably would have had to justify a little bit more of what they were doing had this been like season 1, for instance.
Well, especially like the we know there's been bad history about that historically. Bad shit has happened by using that cipher, and I could imagine prone to oversight nowadays than it would have been, say, 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Jazz. Thanks. Sorry. Thanks, Jazz Deco person. Thanks, Jazz Deco scumbag, who, as far as I have heard, does not work places anymore and probably deserves to not.
No, although I have a thing about, this is a random tangent. I have a thing about collecting Transformers that are historically significant, and I feel like that I don't want that toy, but I do want that Jazz because I think that is a significant Jazz. Kind of like how I want the Power Core Combiner Overrun, because that is a significant toy in the effect it had on how Hasbro names their toys. It was a very big thing. It is still leading to arguments today, Slug Slag. So I actually want to pick
Slug Slag thing.
One of those.
But sorry, I was going to say the Slug Slag thing is like, it's such a parallel, because I remember back then that was also just how a lot of us North Americans learned that is that the Overrun's other name is actually a pretty bad name to just drop in parts of the world, and that was how me and a lot of people learned that, like, because we were just like, what's the problem? Don't understand. And so now whenever I see the whole Slug Slag thing, I'm just like maybe you weren't there for Power Core Combiners, maybe, but also looking at some of the folks who get real uppity, I'm like, no, you're old enough, you were there, you should know better by now. Just take it at face value, okay? Like, and then I learned from like my friend Matt McNally that like I didn't know this, and I learned this somewhat recently, that like Beast Wars, when it aired in the UK, was in fact heavily edited.
Yeah,
because they kept saying a really, in the UK, a pretty nasty word that you're not supposed to say in front of children constantly, all the time.
Yep.
I
didn't hear slag in the show until I watched Rips in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I had no idea. I might have heard and just forgotten at some point, but like Matt Minnelli had mentioned it, was talking about it at TFCon in the lobby, and I think I'd mentioned it some other point, and I to me, I know that's more newer knowledge to me than like something I had heard years ago. But I'm getting on a little bit of a train here, I guess. But at the end of the day, the call outs to a number of fans was super cool, and like also just what like I think Cyberverse got a season 4 in part because so many of us loved Cyberverse. Especially season 2 onwards, that probably inspired a bit of the push, I got to assume, like, to want to try to do these last couple stories. Because like if no one cared, then why push to do season 4? But I got to assume people's care resulted in this, and like this is the reciprocation.
No, it was a wonderful thing to see, and I hate every single one of them, but I'm also so happy for him.
I'm happy for all of them. The thing I mentioned before just it bugged me so much at the time, because I was like, what a freaking YouTuber influencer ass thing to do, to just like go like, oh yeah, I heard I was on there too, and it's like, no, I wasn't. Don't tell me I'm on things that I'm not. Oh my god, I felt bad.
You're in Transformers Animated. People tell me that sometimes. People who don't know I know you, or don't know who I am, like or talking animated. Like I was at TF Nation once. This actually happened, and it was just like, I don't know how we got on to animated, and someone said like, oh yeah, and Chris Vangelus is in it, and I was just like, no, he's not. He is, because I've seen his character model in show, and just like, no, you didn't. Because
I
No,
look a
you
lot like
didn't.
I was. I look a whole lot like I was, but that was no screen cap.
that was a
That's also
kind
why I
gesture
was.
by a good man.
That's also why I was a little bummed out because I was like, I don't need to be on the clipboard. I got into one of these things already. There's a book and then like a compilation version of a book that I have signed as recently as last month or this month, I guess. Like it's all cool. I think I still want to know. I still want to know how much pre-Thu was in Macadam as opposed to post-Thu in Macadam. As far as like what was there ever Thu in Macadam, or was it a coincidence? I still want to know. Did they ever?
That is something I would be very, very, very curious about.
I'm assuming they've never really clarified either way, because the timing of it is in fact just perfect. Where I still to this day I'm like, could be. Like the timing of this could be. Dang, I want to know.
Yeah. It's one of those things. There's like any other show, you wouldn't be asking this, but like, hey, it's the nature of the beast now. It's changed a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've kind of hit my thing. Any final words on season 4 and Cyberverse as a whole?
Please watch it if you like Transformers. Like, I mean, it might not hit for you, but also it's not a time commitment. If your time is that valuable, then like, go in. No, like it's the anime meme, unfortunately, of like, you check out Cyberverse. It gets better after episode X in season 1, but like also not the same as the anime meme. On a mathematical level, but no, it's a lovely show. That had all of the worst rot on the walls and the ceiling and the floor when it started. They were given a lousy cubicle to make a show in, and then they ended up growing a garden in there full of delicious fruit and vegetables. And it's a show that, in spite of what it could have been, ended up actually being really cool. And I will say that I still maintain it is. Just like it's everything that a whole lot of people on Usenet way back wanted G1 to be. There's no humans. It's full of fan references. A whole bunch of it takes place on Cybertron. There's quintessons in it. There's all that stuff you want. Is it the way that you want it specifically? Maybe not, but it's done with love. This is a Transformers show that is brimming with love. And that will never get the credit it deserves due to the I would say like a lot of the indefensible Hasbro side stuff around it, budget wise, union wise, etc. But like, I hope that we can recognize like Randolph Hurd and all the writers and artists and voice actors doing an incredibly solid job within all of that, and not incredibly solid, but like a good job in all of that. I want Randolph Hurd to get to spearhead another Transformers project somewhere somehow. Because if and not just Randolph Hurd, but like everyone involved. I mean, we got Maycat and a couple of the other writers are moving on to Earthspark, and that's really exciting to me. But there are more people involved with this, and I would like to see get to do more Transformers stuff, because like Cyberverse was so fun, and I'm just so tired of how people who end up checking it out and liking parts of it still always have this tone of like, well, in spite of it all, and not the way I'm saying it, but more in the case of like, despite this being kind of crappy, like there were some good bits in here and there, and I'm like, why do you gotta bully the thing? Like, it started off hobbled with circumstances that were not conducive to good television cartoon fun, and yet it still did it. And I wish that the tone around Cyberverse could be a little bit more loving than I just find it tends to be in the channels I occupy, because it was a really good Transformers show. It is specifically a really good Transformers cartoon. And I think that everyone in the fandom should watch it at some point, because it also is not a time commitment. I'm going to start talking in circles here. It's just like I have all these pent up frustrations from the last several years of like trying to just say like, hey, it's pretty cool, and people are like, oh, I don't know, and then a lot of the same people going, oh, I don't know, like doing their fourth watch of The Last Night, or like doing their second hate watch of the Netflix trilogy, and I'm just like, or their 18th hate watch of the Machinima trilogy or something, and I was like, I can't believe you do all of this, and then you're like going to go in with trepidation on watching Cyberverse of all things. But I'm getting grumpy, so I'm gonna follow the example of the show, and I'm gonna end on good feelings, which is like, there is some great stuff in here, and I hope it leaves some DNA tracks we see in future Transformers media to come.
Mm-hmm. I second all of that. It was a lightning in a bottle event for me, the show. I liked so much about the idea of the first episode, and I got so frustrated by some stuff in the first episode. The hobbling of the first season by the format they were given, and the things they had to force in, like doing the radio voice when they clearly didn't have the budget to have multiple actors record lines. So they had to get the poor Bumblebee voice actor to pretend to be lots of people he didn't have the range to do, because he just no human voice that's not Frank Welker.
The silver lining, right, is it created, again, this like semi-headcanon of like, is he maybe not this is just Bumblebee doing all this stuff? Like, maybe he's just, this is a side effect of the memory core damage he's suffering from?
But, and then towards the end of season 1, they started working. They had that end. Could have gone so wrong. It could have gone so wrong, and it felt like so, well, we don't know if we're getting a season 2. They got their season 2, the oversight backs off, and suddenly they go completely their own direction. They start doing things. They managed to tell a story about Transformers on Earth with no humans in it. And I don't mind having humans in it, but I'm fascinated by the lengths they went to avoid having them in. While also having Megatron do a YouTube funeral.
Well, and to have it take place on Earth with no human characters involved, but not in the sweaty Usenet age fan way either. Not in the whole like, there's no humans in this. We're not going to have any stupid human characters. Robots having fights only. It's like, no, they were halfways operating around like not having to worry about having human character models amidst all this stuff. And, human actors having to portray human characters, etc. But, like, it was, like, a loving way to get around having humans by just, like, saying, like, yeah, so, like, a whole season of some cartoon you could have predicted happened in between season 1 and 2. And now we're leaving Earth again. So, bye.
And then when it all culminates in a really strong ending. It wasn't a perfect ending, because nothing is, but it was a really strong ending. And it was one that, within the realm of what they could do, challenged you a bit and played on your feelings and managed to get you invested in these things, and serves as a culmination to a number of new arcs and an overarching idea they introduced in season 3, and all while making me incredibly angry I don't have an Astro Train to play with, or that they haven't done a decent Triptychon, or oh cool, we get all these deluxe toys that are decent. Like, where's Windblade? Where's Sound Blaster? Where's Nightbird? Where's my deluxe Shadow Striker? the most abused character in the Cyberverse toy line, Shadow Striker. Where's Skywarp? Why don't I have a Skywarp? Why is my only option for Skywarp a repaint of Dude Starscream? Why isn't it like? Why? Where's my Acid Storm with alternate heads? Like, this show gave me so much, and I will very much be carrying this with me for a while. Some people are going to tell me I'm crazy for this, and they're welcome to, but this is going to be as deep in my DNA as animated is. It did stuff that I measure a lot of stuff off of. Like, I measure performances, I measure Optimus Prime, I measure villains, I measure stuff like this. So Cyberverse is another one, because not only do I say, like, by the end of it, you can measure all of those things, and they're high quality. You can say, okay, how are you using your runtime? Are you getting your pacing right? What are you doing with your visuals? How are you managing your budget? Like, that, when I was looking at Earthspark's trailer, it was just like, okay, so they've got a scene where for the transformation, they've transitioned from spinning vehicle to spinning robot. They don't actually seem to have a transformation model in the middle of it. What does that say? Cyberverse could do that. Did they not have the budget Cyberverse did? Obviously, now we see they actually have a budget. But like my brain was like, I realized like, oh, I'm comparing it to Cyberverse and saying like, trying to figure out how it's going to technically hold up to a show that when it came out, when we saw the visuals, lots of people were not sitting there thinking like, you'll be using this as a technical example of it. It's in my DNA now. It is like animated. It's like Prime. It's like it's like quite a lot of shows that aren't Transformers. This is going to be with me for years. With the advantage that it's so easy to come back to because it's so short in terms of runtimes. And oh my god, please watch this show. Even if you don't think you like it, believe me, you'll hit a part like something in it. And it's strange to say that, like, get through it and it gets better. It's not that get through it gets better. Get through it and it will something in it will sing to you. I think.
Yeah, I can't imagine a Transformers fan finding nothing in Cyberverse because the show just has so much love for what Transformers are, especially what Transformers are in a very modern sense of the word or sense of the term, I guess. Like, it's not just like a love for G1 or a love for this Transformers series. It's a love for the culmination of, you know, over 30 some years so far of Transformers that we've had. Also, I will say, like, the one little thing I'm happy about in a maudlin way is that I'm actually at peace with some of the even the deluxe Windblade. That is maybe halfway as a meme on my part. I'm at peace with a lot of this because I went through RID 2015. I'm never gonna get my Stunticons. So you know what?
Yeah,
none of you deserve to have anything you want.
That metaphor would be nice.
If I don't get the thing that I really want, why should anyone get what they want?
Hey, I was someone who liked that Grimlock. The option was a Cybertron tool, which I've never gotten because I can't bring myself to buy that toy twice. But yeah, there's just so much here that is like on it. Like, this is something I think is really important. I said it already. It's not pulling the member berries. It's not doing what we seem to, for me, are really stuck in at the moment. Which is, do you remember G1? Do you remember the days when you were a kid? Do you remember the days when you were nostalgic for these things? Remember these old designs? We've added joints. Remember this old character? We've added joints. We've got new engineering. We can do this character model from 1984. And to me, this show was very much saying, like, Transformers DNA is made up of legacy, but it's also new things and new designs and new takes. And, you know, like, I would take a Voyager or a Leader class Cyberverse Astro Train 1,000 times before I'd take the Kingdom one or the Titan's Return, or not Titan's Return, the Earthrise one. Like, I think the design's better, but I also like it's new, it's different, it's referencing, but it's not the same. And I am so tired of the same in Transformers, in He-Man, in Star Trek, in so many franchises. Star Wars, whichever one you want to pick, it's just like they're all turning around slowly and looking backwards and saying, wasn't that great? And I want to know what's great about you now. Which I am really interested to see Strange New Worlds, which people said is basically that show. That is the show saying, like, what's good about writing good Star Trek now. So,
I saw the final episode of Strange New Worlds season with a couple friends who wanted to watch it, so I saw it out of context. But I will say it did have a kind of a cool. I kind of liked what I was seeing because it was like if you just took everything from the original series and then focused the cameras a little bit, it basically is what it looked like. And I thought it was a cool take because I was informed because I assumed that, like, people were not happy with, like, oh, the uniforms have texture now, or like they got fancy little screens that look more advanced than the ones from the 1960s, and it's like. Well, yeah, to me, this looks like if you took a screenshot from 1960 Star Trek and then it went like, what was in their imagination? Then you see what you see in a shot from Strange New Worlds. So it was kind of cool. Granted, I saw one episode and I got a little bit sleepy halfway through because I had just eaten a steak, so I was a little bit out of it.
But what I realize for my age, go. I was just going to say, for my age, I know I'm being weird. I know it's weird for someone my age being this adamant against G1 these days, but I really am.
Well, the thing Cyberverse actually gives me that is Cyberverse to me actually made me feel better about Evergreen, because Cyberverse is full of Evergreen Transformer design, like from that, you know, that sort of design Bible. And And Cyberverse almost went like, you see, even if we have Evergreen, we can still do cool stuff with it that doesn't make you think about how these are the Evergreen designs. And I was like, you know what? Yeah. Like and I think that's already bled over to how I feel about Earthspark, because with Earthspark, obviously, like, you know, the super Nick Roche designs that we've been seeing are pretty dang cool. But we also have a very evergreen Optimus, a very evergreen Bumblebee. But when I look at them, I don't feel bad. I'm kind of like, yeah, but you know what? It could be fine. I saw Cyberverse. Evergreen can work now. So let's just see what they do with it. And it just makes me feel better about the evergreen side of the proliferation of G1 everywhere. Like, granted, Evergreen is actually not really that present in Transformers Generations on a visual level. Generations is you know, it pull a lot of characters we know, but Evergreen exists more in the kid side stuff. And I don't know, it's made me feel better about that stuff appearing specifically in Earthspark. Where also, obviously, Earthspark has a whole lot of stuff that is not leaning into the Evergreen aesthetic, at least like in as direct a way. Like, as has been straight up stated, like the Megatron in Earthspark is based on the what they said, based on the Flame Toys model kit.
Yeah, I noticed that.
They confirmed, oh yeah, we were inspired by the Flame Toys model kit. And it's like, oh yeah, the Flame Toys model kit. That is literally called IDW Megatron. Yeah, that's
It's good design, by the way. Good design. I like their Megatron design a lot.
Yeah,
I like it a lot.
I'm kind of excited about seeing what Earthspark is off of the end of Cyberverse. Just knowing that there's carry through DNA in the writing, that the presence of Evergreen design is no longer as spooky to me as it was a few years ago. And, you know, obviously Earthspark has some, you know, fresh stuff going on as well. The Nick Roche side of Earthspark, I think, is really going to hook me in. And also, like, one of the other upsides of Cyberverse is that now we've actually had several years kind of without humans in Transformers. So I'm a lot more amenable to having a couple of human main characters again. Because I'm like, no, you know what? Like, we haven't had them for a while. And they're going to be kids. They're going to be kid characters in a cartoon. They will inherently be kind of grating because that's what kid characters in cartoons are for adults. And I think that's actually sort of an undivorceable quality, because it's like, how do you write a kid character who's cool to someone in their 30s or 40s? You kind of can't. It's more about the way that the adult characters around them react to them. So I'm really, this is maybe transitioning a topic here, but off of the end of Cyberverse, I'm actually kind of looking forward to Earthspark. Just seeing what some of those writers, for instance, like the Masai and May, like what they do with human characters, because I don't really know I haven't seen what they would do with human characters.
No, I'm really curious. Also, like, we don't know what the tone is going to be for Spark. The trailer made it, you know, like, they playing up the drama and everything else, but it's also got a character called Mandroid, played by Diedrich, what's his name? Dr. Mandroid, I'm sorry. Who has a giant hand, and he's played by an actor I do not associate with serious villainy. So I'm very curious to see what they do with the Doctor. I'm really interested now after seeing that trailer and getting a better sense of things. Like, and also, like, clearly some new designs for old characters as well in there. Because hey, Swindle, you caught me off guard.
Yeah. Or hey, Bombshell, with all your legs coming out the back of your head like a freaky alien thing.
Yeah, no. This is good. Just
by the way,
don't make great loving designs and characters that I love, and then just either make bad toys or no toys. I'll be annoyed again.
Oh, it is. I'm just going in prepared, even though, granted, Deluxe exists on day one, and that's a good sign. But like, I'm a little bummed out where it's like, so you got official Nick Roche Transformers in big media, for the media that doesn't actually get as many toys as you might think they get. But also, it's worth mentioning Diedrich Baker is Batman in the Harley Quinn cartoon and does a pretty good...
What?
Oh, you didn't know?
No, like I said, I've seen one episode and I do not remember him being in. Because, like, I saw it at a bad time, I'll be honest. Also, like, I saw it and then I watched Lower Decks, and I think Lower Decks has an atrocious first few episodes, and I still think that. I actually only sat down to watch some of the later episodes recently and said, like, oh, these get much better. But like, I just saw this as a bad time in my life, and I didn't give it a fair shot. which,
I was
like I
saying
said, Lower
Baker.
Decks
It's
now
Bader.
regret that. Bader, but like, oh god, him as Batman is something I could actually really enjoy.
It's a very fun take on Batman because it is very much, it's played very much on the outset as being a little bit for laughs, a little bit Will Arnett, but not Will Arnett Batman. It feels like Will Arnett Batman might have been the initial direction, but like there's I think there's fun stuff to Diedrich Bader Batman in that show. So that's also, having just listened to 2 seasons of him being Batman, like I'm like who on earth, like hearing the one clip that we've heard so far of him as Mandroid, I'm just like, I don't know where this is coming from, but also I'm wondering how much DNA there might be production company wise, because we got Diedrich Bader and Alan Tudyk, 2 actors I know primarily right now for being in the Harley Quinn animated series. But yeah, that's getting a little bit more into Earthspark, but like that, you know, I assumedly at some point, Mikey and I might talk about Earthspark. Hopefully, we like it a whole lot and want to talk about
it. Because I've realized as well, like, again, coming out of that bad space I was in, which I think a lot of people were in bad spaces in recent years. So I don't think
the last 2 years really.
I mean, last year was.
2019 was just last year, and it's hard to remember that. But
it certainly feels like it feels like it's always going to be last.
I'm going to be pushing that toxic mindset for at least another 3 years, so don't mind me.
But I don't enjoy reviewing things I hate anymore. I like discussing. That's why I like having Chris on, because it's a discussion more than a review usually. I like discussing things I don't like, but I realized recently with Dominion, and watching some Dominion reviews and also watching some Thor Ragnarok reviews, that there's a lot of toxicity you absorb in the language around reviews. And like language like this, this is one I was like, well, it's great if you can turn your brain off. Or one reviewer who was just playing it way too hard, just like, well, I mean, if you're fucking stupid enough to enjoy it or something like that. But like the turn your brain off phrase, when I actually think about that, I think that is so demeaning. It's like, oh, you can enjoy it. The only people who enjoy this are people because they've turned off the part of their brain that decides what's good or bad. Like,
yeah, I not to get like scientific about it, but like, because that phrase always bugs me. It has bugged me for at least 5 or 6 years. That phrase, because it establishes there is a binary viewing state that you can enter, where either you're thinking about what you're watching, or you're just enjoying the loud noises. And it bothers me because there are things that I have enjoyed where someone's, oh, you turn your brain off, it's pretty fun. And I'm like, no, I don't enjoy it because I turned my brain off. I enjoy it because I've identified quantifiable qualities that I think are important. And I don't think that I have to then start critiquing the quote-unquote dumber parts of it just because I think these parts are really smart. Like, a big part of this also comes from being a tokusatsu fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where in tokusatsu, it's really easy for people to go like, "Hey, it's funny. See, you can see the Velcro strips on the costumes, ha ha ha." And it's like, I mean, I know that is a way people enjoy like kaiju films and stuff, but it is very anathema to the way that I enjoy stuff.
It's same actually. Like, I never enjoy those really self-aware, I'm doing a kaiju movie, but I know it's dumb, because tend to take them quite seriously, and like if it's a comedy I laugh at it, or if it's a serious drama I go with the drama, and I like or dislike it. You know, I decide whether I like Shin Godzilla based on what's happening in it, or Godzilla 2019 or anything like that. But hey, let's do Mystery Science Theater, but like for the world. And it's just like Rider, I think Tokusatsu, but Rider, since I'm watching more of that these days. But that's a really good example, because like if someone said like it's all fucking stupid, I just like roll out O's and Gaim and I just quietly leave them on in the background and wait for the realization to hit. That you do not turn off your brain watching these shows, because you will get left in the dust.
The other reason I don't like that phrase is because it has 2 different directions of negativity. Is it sort of demeans the ability to find meaning, even simple meaning, in something that is, you know, silly or loud and explosive. It also becomes this way to deactivate the ability to want to assess stuff under that genre that you don't like. And I know I'm in the minority here. I didn't really like Godzilla King of the whatever. Was King of the Monsters the one with Ghidorah in it?
Yeah, King of the Monsters was
the
good. Or.
American. Yeah, I didn't enjoy that movie very much, and a lot of
How
the times when I
dare
wanted,
you?
well, a lot of the times when I said like I didn't really like this movie that much for a couple of reasons, I'd start talking and then I'd get the thing like, oh, you just turn your brain off and enjoy it, and I'm like, yeah, but that's not what I'm trying to say here. Is I'm because that's establishing again this weird like binary state of like, well, it's good if you're 0 and it's not good if you're 1, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm not 0 or 1 here. Like I'm looking at it as someone who enjoys a lot of bombastic stuff, and I have problems with it because of X, Y, and Z, and I don't want to. I don't like this established idea of like you're either a film critic or a popcorn muncher, because I think that it, like you said, it creates a toxicity in trying to enjoy, more so to me, trying to enjoy media, because the human brain, the modern culture human brain in pop culture loves to lean into the negative. It is just our instinct for whatever reason. And kind of bouncing off this point, this is also why I tend to I've gotten away from the idea of the media hug box mentality of like, oh, you got to be able to talk to people who don't like the thing that you like, and it's like, no, you should, but like I personally, I'm always more interested in what someone likes or likes about something than what they dislike about it, because usually it's frankly more interesting to hear what someone likes about something. Like even in my case with Godzilla King of the Monsters, I am always happier to talk about the parts that I like, because I also feel that informs more greatly why I ended up not liking it, because there were parts of that movie I think were in fact really well done. But just in general, like I just always am happier to talk to someone about what they like rather than want to really get into the weeds about what they don't like. Like we'll have discussions where one of us likes something, one of us doesn't. Mikey and I have had discussions like that before, and those are not what I'm talking about. But like just the random encounter, or the like, the pre-scheduled discussion that one wants to have. I never want to go into a pre-scheduled discussion of like, let's get together to talk about why we both really hate this thing. Because I've done a couple of those. They're funny in the moment, but like eventually it's just like all I'm really doing is making someone feel bad for enjoying this, and not making anyone feel better about not enjoying it. Whereas if you talk about what you like, I find you just tend to make someone feel better about enjoying a thing, because maybe they've only ever heard about why they're stupid or why they had to turn their brain off to enjoy it, even if they didn't.
I always think, well, like I said, the current run of Jurassic films makes me think that, or sometimes King of the Monsters does, because when people don't like that, like again, the language is usually like it's a dumbass movie, just like I don't actually think it is, but as you say, like there's so much you could talk about. But what I think about is the original Hellboy film, which has a huge number of flaws, but I have a huge affection for it, because I found the performance by Ron Perlman absolutely stellar, and it made me a fan of the comics, and it got me reading the comics, and they're great as well. And I hear one of the rare times when I'm reading something, I hear the voice of the character in media. I never do that with most things. Although I have turned every version of Shockwave is now either Cyberverse or Prime Shockwave in my head, I have to admit. But and I was told, like, it's a dumbass movie, but hey, if you're able to turn your brain off like that, that's okay. And I was told that.
Wait, about Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy? People say that?
Guillermo del Toro, Hellboy, and specifically Hellboy 2, which I think is grossly superior to Hellboy 1, and I like Hellboy 1, but...
Yeah, I need to rewatch Hellboy 2 someday, because I know that I didn't dislike it. It's just I know I liked Hellboy 1 more in the aughts at the time, and I have not really done a rewatch since then. The last quote I'd ever attribute to either of those movies, even on the worst day, would be, "Oh, you just gotta turn your brain off." Like that is bordering on media illiteracy, is the way I would put it. Not to, I don't want to be rude. It's just that like I have trouble accepting that notion, because it's just like there is a level of artistry and also genuine eagerness to those films that like I can't fathom the idea of defining them as turn your brain off action flicks. Like that's a ridiculous notion to not. I mean, I'm yelling at you, and you're not the one who said it, obviously. But like,
the simple idea of having a demonic character and his main thing is like writing him very human. Very simple idea, but it's like very different to what most things would do, especially back then, which was all blood and guts and vampires.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't connect with the modern Hellboy, because it's too blood and guts and vampires.
I'm going to stand by what I said, actually. If you call Guillermo del Toro's, especially Hellboy 1, of both of them, if you actually call Hellboy 1 by Guillermo del Toro, starring Ron Perlman and Doug Jones and several other, if you call that a turn-your-brain-off movie, that is straight-up media literacy. I'm sorry if that's a bit harsh, but, like, I'm getting really on a tangent here, and I promise I'll reel myself in. It's just that is part of the problem I have with the tone in which pop culture is discussed a lot nowadays is like on these very set tracks that with one of those tracks being the media illiteracy call out track, even accepting that is one of those tracks, trying to separate that out a little bit. It's so frustrating how like you can't approach a film as yourself sometimes. You have to approach it under the auspices of how you're supposed to approach it. Like, you know, and I am in fact falling on a track when I say this, and I promise you it's not on the track's method. But like that is when you talk about Marvel and DC films right now. It's like hard to approach them as entities, and it's also really hard to criticize one without someone assuming you actually dislike them on the whole, or dislike some of the concepts on the whole. It's a real mess. Yeah, it's a real messy situation, right? Like, because like Thor Ragnarok, for instance, like that one always frustrated me too because I liked that movie, and yet I found a lot of the reasons people liked it to be kind of irritating compared to the reasons why I liked it, and then I found I couldn't drop my critiques of why I disliked parts of it. Because then you'd get the people who hated it from top to bottom going like, oh, finally someone's calling it like it is. And I'm like, yeah, but no. Because like I have read some of your critiques and I categorically disagree with a lot of them on a subjective level, obviously not objective.
How dare you disagree with me? I'm a doctor, sir.
So am I. I'm a doctor of gutiology. I just told someone that the other day. But yeah, it is kind of annoying because like it's very difficult to not attract a lot of single flavor responses when you want to just talk about how you as one person felt about a thing.
Yeah, but I actually think even where you said there, like, you strongly disagree with me on these points about Thor Ragnarok. I know full well that if we're ever lucky enough to be at a team, hopefully I can be. If work keeps going the way it's going, actually probably will be next year. But hope. But I know that if we sat down and got into a discussion about it, like there would be no sense of judgment or anything else. It would be two people having a discussion about something they like and something someone didn't like, and they would go away, and then it would probably turn into, but you know what was cool here? Yeah, that was cool. I'll give you that. And yeah, that could have been done better. But it wouldn't. Neither of us would need to be. No one in that conversation would say like, yeah, but you turn, or you just have to turn your brain off. That would never come into the conversation.
Oh yeah, I would never say that because
so many times. Like another one, like I don't like Evangelion. I just don't. Like to a comedic level on Twitter, but real life Mike talking here for a second. I just don't connect with it. I don't like it. For me, it wastes all the good potential in it. And I have never had a good conversation with anyone about that because either people violently hate it and play up what I'm doing for entertainment's sake on a podcast, or they defend it and treat me so poorly because of it. And it's just like, I just want to talk to someone about
it. It is because of those environments that have been created by like, often, like, unfortunately, often by the people who most loudly dislike stuff, because like, that is what creates that defensive-ness. Because like with Evangelion, I definitely have seen that, because like, I even just call it Evangelion, so I'm inviting problems here already. Because I actually watched it for the first time just a couple years ago, which was probably the best time to watch it for the first time, because you go in kind of more aware of what you're getting into, and I genuinely enjoyed it in a way where I actually can understand how people get very defensive of it, because there are so many little things about its creation, and at the time especially what it was, that would make it mean the world to someone. The way that pieces of music can mean the world to someone. and I think the reason why people get very defensive of it is because, like, when a lot of the critiques of it do get like that cartoonish, it's often going back to what we were just talking about. Like, it's about how not you have to turn your brain off, but it's more like the other version of that, the violent refusal that there could be any value to the personal stake of the person making it. Whereas I think that you could easily not enjoy Evangelion because of the thing I like about it, which is that it was I'm kind of like shaving the edges off a little bit here, but like it was a show primarily by a guy who really loved stuff and wanted to express that stuff freely, and then went through personal crisis while making it and tried to express his personal crisis under the auspices of this love letter he was making. And it means that the thing is disastrous, the TV version, at least, disastrous by the end. But it's also incredibly personal. And because of that, it shouldn't work for everybody. There's and not like inherent discomfort in like you're being challenged kind of stuff, but just like there's an inherent discomfort in the back end of Evangelion because you're basically being made to witness someone's personal crisis they were going through and how they were trying to cope with it with the things that were their security blankets, and then how that didn't work, basically. Like, I think Evangelion works a lot better knowing that Anno is also better and doing better now. I think that it helps make it more enjoyable to watch. But if you like, regardless of all of that, it also means that like if you would also prefer to have something that is not how do I put this, not soaked in the personal crisis of its showrunner, to use a phrase, it won't work for you. And I think that that's really important. And I think it sucks that, like, because that's like me when I say I don't like Ant-Man, right? The film Ant-Man, is that to do the parallel by saying that, you will get, like, you know, in Evangelion's case, you will get the people coming out of the woodwork going like, yeah, it's this pretentious nonsense garbage. Things, in fact, has no meaning. And especially to all the people who claims it has meaning, because I'm making assumptions on the behalf of Mikey here. I don't think Mikey, like, I don't think, speaking as Mikey's lawyer, I don't think Mikey wishes to imply, or in fact believes in any devaluing of your personal connection to Evangelion because of the parallels it may have with your own personal crises that may have mirrored those of the creator at the time.
No, I will go out on a limb and say I think if it speaks to you, it's doing it for a reason. And again, podcast performance aside, because I've apparently told I have to entertain people, I think some of the arguments people have put forward for why it matters are so powerfully personal and stuff like that. I think I would find it disrespectful to try and argue against them, because it's not arguing against the quality of the show to me. It's arguing against, where were you when you watched this? Where are you now?
Yeah.
Are you in a better place? Are you in a worse place? Because it speaks to you, and it speaks to something in your life, like every piece of media does. Like, why do I enjoy Godzilla vs. Kong? A lot. And it's not just because it's a big monster romp. And I realized why when I was watching Primal. It's because it's two non-verbal characters. That the two main characters in Godzilla vs. Kong, Godzilla and Kong. And all the complaints about the human characters in that movie never bother me, because they don't matter, because they're secondary characters, because the dinosaur and the monkey are the main characters. And I am fascinated by non-verbal communication. And that's something that just draws me in. And I've realized that after Primal and reading The Age of Reptiles. And even Simon Furman wrote one about Ravage from the movies, the Revenge of the Fallen one, which I defend to this dying day.
I forgot that exists.
But that kind of communication fascinates me, but that's like, no one should ever think that that should be, you know, analyzed in the same way as was the timing good? Was, you know, as you said, like, it's very easy to say the end of Evangelion is a disaster, but especially when you understand why, not just like the imagery speaking to someone who may not know the context, but when you understand the context, I'm sure, especially if you've gone through some of the stuff he's had to go through, it speaks to you on such a deep level. Tomino and Gundam, I think, are very, very, particularly Gundam Victory, because he faced many of the same struggles that Anno did, and you know, the nihilism that comes across. Whenever I've seen someone say they love that show, it's because of that element to it.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's weird to go off on this tangent because it's just made me realize, like, I'm so happy to have had that realization and be past that myself. And I'm a wee bit regretful for the conversations I had that were too performative and too in that, well, I guess you can turn your brain off. Because...
Oh, and I've been guilty of that too, and I had a similar epiphany, like once not literally the same one, but like once I had some of the notions I've talked about in this little tangent, that it makes it more fun to talk about media as well, and it when you remove that, a couple of things, like when you remove the feeling of you have to talk about every media, or the feeling that like you have to talk about every media in a way that is also like very like I'm going to lay the hammer down if I didn't like this thing. Just the pursuit of finding people who enjoyed the thing you enjoy and wanting to talk about your enjoyment of it, because I also find that's where you start to have more fascinating critiques come out, and then you also do your part to start getting away from that language we're talking about that is so, I would say, unintentionally destructive. Like whenever someone wants to talk about something that we both like, and then they say, "Oh, I love it," but you can also just turn your brain off, and I always want to go like, "Yeah, but let's say we didn't turn our brains off, though. What do we really like about it, right?" Or I've been on. I might have done one with you where we did this, but I can't remember. I know I've been on one case where it's like we're talking about a thing where the other person I'm podcasting with legit didn't like it, and I tried to make an overt effort to go like, well, I really liked it and you didn't, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna talk about a part I really didn't like. I'm gonna give you some fuel. Oh boy, this part I'm gonna amp it up. I'm gonna really talk about this part I didn't like. But as a favor to me, then you got to tell me about a part that you did like, because you can confirm to me there was a part you liked, right? And usually it's like, oh yeah, and then it's like, all right, so this is gonna be fair. I'm gonna talk about something I didn't like, and you got to talk about something you liked, and you got to talk about something you liked for more than 60 seconds. Because we got to create a balance in the universe, and it just I just it makes for more interesting conversation, and like you said, it gets us away from these sound bites that I think are like a bit of a part of the current pop culture that is really unfortunate. Like this is the last bit of this tangent. I promise I'll reel myself in. It's just that, like, because I mentioned it before, whenever I mention, oh, I didn't really like Ant-Man, it's not because it's a Marvel movie, A, and B, it's not because, oh, it's a big, silly, funny heist action movie and you turn your brains. No, it's not. It is because of specific nuances of the presented production that really rubbed me the wrong way on a production level, and in the greater oeuvre of Marvel Studios productions, how it represents an era that I think was its worst era, that I believe they've gotten away from, that I believe threatens to reignite itself in a certain way, but we'll see. Like, it's in a better place now. But I think, Ant-Man really represents this very flat era where there is cool stuff in the movie that's not flat, but there is an overarching cloud over it. And I think that I'm only ever supported in this notion by every time Paul Rudd has played Ant-Man in any movie that was not titled Ant-Man. It's like the Kamen Rider Wizard thing, where Wizard is really cool every time he appears outside of his own series, right? It's almost like a bit of a running gag. But I'm like, that to me exists in the Marvel thing with Ant-Man. He's awesome. And I never saw Ant-Man 2, partly because I was so not really into Ant-Man 1. I was like, I'll just find out what happens.
See it, but I don't remember it.
I mean, that I'm going to not be mean, but I was going to say, like, if someone's reaction to Ant-Man 2 is, I don't remember what happened in it, that kind of I was like, all right, so I was right, but I'm not going to be mean. Because I know people have enjoyed it, and I don't want to take that away from anyone. But like that's just like, it's that, and also like when I talk about stuff in Star Wars, I'm not that into. It's not like, oh yeah, the franchises are such a problem. It's like, no, honestly, I like franchises. In fact, I love connected continuity in productions, because that's another one. Whenever you say like, oh, I'm not really into a current Marvel thing, it's like, oh, this continuity stuff, and it's like, that's not the problem. It's the continuity is fine. It is how it is presented and how much importance it's given that is the critiquable part. And kind of as a cherry on top, the most frustrating thing is once you start saying, oh, it's so hard to have nuance talking about this, and some people will go like, yeah, man, nuance is lost. And then you're like, yeah, and then they're like, all these SJWs don't see the nuance. Like, oh no, that's right. A bunch of U-types have taken some of the language about nuance and turned it into your little weird Trojan horse to get all your bullshit into the conversation. So that's why, in general, if I tend to preface what I say a whole lot, it's usually to try to like both sidestep and stamp into the dirt a lot of the things, the habits of our pop culture that I'm really tired of, because then we get to just have these fun discussions. Where I'm like, Evangelion is in fact a piece of genius art, you Philistine. How can and then I'll be like, but I didn't like Godzilla King of Monsters, and then Mike can be like, oh, you're the Philistine. You're the
just like leaps up. Aha!
You dirt Philistine. Actually, I'm not going to drag it on. I was going to say that the thing I actually really liked about the movie, but maybe I'll leave that a mystery.
Oh, go on. I'm curious now. I'm curious.
There are sequences in that film that not only show strong storyboarding, but in fact look like a painted storyboard in motion. There are not a ton of them, but there are a couple, and they are so striking that I think they are, in fact, legitimately beautiful. I don't think the action afterwards is as beautiful, and it bums me out a little bit because the storyboard moment looks so gorgeous. I'm waiting for like this incredible action sequence, and then I just don't really feel that it happens. But like there are moments of visual design in that movie that are gorgeous. I just wish that was the case for a lot of the action and motion afterwards.
Okay. In the spirit of camaraderie, I will provide a critique of King of the Monsters relating to that, which is I firmly believe that Michael Dougherty, who I think really loves what he was doing, was either convinced he had to try and emulate 2014's filming style while still trying to add in his clear preference for more dramatic action and more holding shots and stuff like that, or was told to do it that way. And it ultimately means that the film's action scenes specifically are hampered because of that. The visual language of 2014 Godzilla was the pan away, the 2-second shot, and it means like a classic. Probably my least favorite fight scene in that film is the underwater one, where Godzilla drags Ghidorah down, and that's a scene where like that would have been really cool if it was filmed with pull-out shot of the monsters. You can cut back every minute or so to whatever the people are doing on the boats. But because they basically just like, even in shots with just the monsters, like they're occupying like the bottom of the screen and then they're obscured by water and stuff like that. Like that was a film mistake. It's something I really like about Godzilla vs. Kong, which is they throw that completely out the window and just say like, here's an action scene. Look at it.
Was that the same? Sorry, because I'm vaguely recalling circumstances. Is it the same director on King of the Monsters that was on 2014?
No, Garrett Edwards did 2014, and Garrett Edwards was the fellow who directed Monsters, which was used very much that same filming style, and he applied that to Godzilla 2014. Whereas Michael Dougherty directed King of the Monsters, and there are many moments in that film where I can feel wanted to linger on shots than he could, which is why I think it was probably an edict of keeping the same visual language. And I think that the reception of that visual language, even by people who like the film, is the reason Godzilla vs. Kong largely does away with it and does lots more hold-on shots. And like, there's a 5-minute like uninterrupted standard fight scene between Godzilla and Kong, and the Mechagodzilla fight is similarly filmed like from a more standard shot, while also being very creative and having some nice camera tricks and stuff like that. But
because I recall that a feeling I did have about King of the Monsters that also was one that can get lost when I say I didn't like it, is I actually felt for the filmmaker, because I felt like the filmmaker was being literally pulled apart at the seams, trying to do 3 different references to 3 different eras of Godzilla at the same time. And not knowing which one to do, and thus trying to just do all of them in a way that like it kind of just like, you know, it felt like he was being pulled in multiple directions and not getting to do specifically what he wants. That makes any sense?
Yeah, I definitely feel like there's a large element of that. in that
Yeah,
film.
yeah. The one thing I didn't come away from in that film was thinking like, oh, this director trash, because like my problems with the movie have a lot more to do with what I suspect the production was doing. That and also like I just can't get over the. There's just one line. There's just one line where it's like I can't remember the whole thing, but it's like in the West you wish to destroy your monsters, but in the East we
wish to
respect
understand them. We wish to understand them.
That whole sequence to me is the whitest sequence I've ever heard written for a bunch of Asian actors, and I was like, that part also. I admit that part like really put me off the movie about halfway through. So I was very unfair to the film while I was watching it because that little taste was on my mouth the whole time.
Yeah, for me they kind of pull it back because I think that leads in not too long after into the Undercity scene, which I really like. But yeah, there in all the movies there are moments where there's a lot of blinking. I'll never really get over like we need Kong, the world needs him. Whereas in context, it's not necessarily that you need Kong; it's that as long as you have Kong, someone's going to try to kill you all. So actually, you need less of Kong because the world would probably be calmer quicker. And a lot of these problems... Actually, yeah. No. Because if Kong hadn't been there, or if Godzilla had killed Kong, he probably would have beaten Mechagodzilla and we wouldn't have had to worry about anything. So you didn't need Kong. You made the world worse.
I feel bad I'm drawing a critique out of you because I never saw the Versus movie, so I don't want to affect your opinion on it either way.
You can't. I love that movie. Like someone was saying, it's a piece of crap recently. I'm just like, nah, it's my favorite one. I think it's a great kaiju film. I love it to death.
That's also what my contribution to that discourse is that like I just didn't really want to see it, so I did the brave thing and I just didn't see it.
Yeah. How dare you not see that's before that was me with Marvel movies a few years ago. I'm just kind of burnt. The only time
I let them go sometimes. Yeah, I let Marvel movies go. So that's where also my critiques often don't make sense in the greater discourse. Is that like I just watch the ones I think look cool, and then because the one thing I will say about them is like for the most part, if you miss some of the references, usually you can still watch the movie. It's just like back in the day when I would pick up random comic books and I wouldn't know entirely what all's going on, but it was still like a crafted story, so I just watch it, and then like if I was confused about some parts, I go on the internet afterwards and I'm like, hey, why was this guy called like John Eggman? And they're like, oh, well, that was a reference to the movie you didn't watch where he was the Eggman, this evil villain who fought with hard-boiled eggs. And I'm like, oh, that's neat. And then I'm like shrug and I'm like, yeah, okay, now I get it. It's cool.
How do you feel about the Sonic movies?
I haven't seen them. I would actually like to because I heard they're fun.
They're great. Sonic 2's better, but they're great.
I saw a bunch of clips of the first one, and it looked neat. So I'm not against seeing them. It's just like making the time.
The way I always describe it is like it's that movie that and you watch a trailer and you don't think it should work because it shouldn't work, and then you watch the movie and just like, oh my god, it works so well. Like that's how I always feel about
someday. Someday I'll double feature them while I do some like all day miniatures painting or something because they feel like they will suit that situation well. But I think what I would define this tangent as is that because I think this is very important to Cyberverse because I think there's a whole lot of Cyberverse critique, not to wing it back around, but like that falls under the auspices of like, well, it's for the kids, but it's okay, and like that's another one where it's like, hey, maybe let's not just go like, oh, it's for the kids because like. As has been stated, this show was written for kids, but the advice it received that it implemented very well was it was a kid's show, but it was written for the adults who were writing it, not for the adults who want to see Megatron pee on a guy and then like squeeze babies until they turn into paste or something, but like for the adults who are like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if like there were some light character stakes, that are not like vulgar, but are just like light character stakes that fit into an adventure series. So, consider that approach on some of your Transformers stuff too, dear listener, going forward. Of just like when you see Earthspark, you see whatever the next series is, and like there's a kid in the trailer, and it's like, oh no, kid characters. It's like, okay, like you could probably dislike kid characters, hell yeah, but like don't do it on like Transformers fan autopilot, because like there's a certain flavor of it where like I can smell it when it happens, and it's like usually it's a very vapid way to react. So like you got to know what Transformers are when you're watching it, and like if there's kids and you just don't want human characters, then just say it. But like if it's like these kids might be annoying, it's like no, they will be annoying. They're kid characters in a cartoon for kids. That is inherent. Yeah, like in real life, kids are kind of annoying. That's just how it works.
You heard it here first.
So, like,
everyone, Chris hates children.
I don't hate them. I just acknowledge kids are kind of annoying because they're small humans who haven't lived as long as a lot of other humans. So, like, that's inherent. So, like, do you hate kids for being annoying? Why do you hate the grass for being made of grass? Like, just if you know the grass is there, don't go like, damn, it's grass again. You know, like just see what the show does when it has to involve grass. And guess what? That G1 that you like so much was full of grass. So get over it. I don't know.
Oh dear. Well, on that note, it is getting very late here. I've got work in the morning. So I think I absolutely love what that turned into. Absolutely fascinating. But yeah, Chris, thank you.
It's all happened because you told me someone said Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy was a turn your brain off action movie, and I got friggin' lit up.
I could say worse as well, what they told me, but no, I need to sleep. Chris, I'm not going to do the usual shilling thing, because if they don't know who you are by now, where are they in the internet? But I do want to say, like,
also, I'm not inviting any of y'all to come and tell me why you hate Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy, because I don't, like, hopefully we've made it clear. I'm not out looking for the fist fight. And in fact, if you have worse things to say, I'm probably fine with those. It was that specific phrase that lit me up for a second.
Well, I will say, Chris, like, this is an absolute blast, and thank you so much for this.
No worries. I'm like, it's always a pleasure, and I mean, like I said at the top, I like Cyberverse, and I know that you like Cyberverse. So going off what we were just talking about, hell yeah, I'm excited to just talk about why I like Cyberverse with someone who liked Cyberverse. That's right. A fun conversation to have. No, it's a pleasure as always. I will hopefully clean up my audio track so you have a decent one to work with, because I gotta see what on earth this is that I've been recording this whole time.
Right. Anyway, guys, thank you all for listening. It's late, so we won't do the shilling, but I don't know when this is coming out, because not only is it the usual mad release schedule, but obviously we've been having tech trouble. So hopefully this will be out soon, but I can't make no promises. But yeah, I'm definitely up for doing this again for Earthspark, or maybe Cyberverse Season 5 will rise out of the floor. I don't know. But whatever's next, I'm interested, which is so nice. Anyway, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Ciao.